Welcome back to episode number 11 of the Pick and Roll podcast. I'm Campbell,
I'm Max.
and you may have noticed that things look a little different this week because I'm still here in
Where are you,
Australia.
mate? Where are you?
We're not together.
You're not right next to me.
And my
Feels
boy
weird.
Max is in Italy on holiday.
At Rome. I'll swing the camera around for you.
He's in Rome
My
doing
beautiful
big
view.
things. Yeah,
One
so
thing
he is,
I,
but
I earned this trip myself, so
he worked
I
hard
didn't.
for it.
This is a
No, but
family trip.
we still wanted to get an episode out for you guys, even though it's a bit more difficult. And obviously, you can see we're recording on Zoom. We've still tried to keep the audio to a high standard, and obviously, the content of the podcast is still going to be A1 quality for you guys. I'm sure you'll enjoy the
Cool.
episode, so stay tuned,
Definitely, definitely. So what have we got programmed for today?
mate. Mate, you know we've got
I
the top Batman and Robins, aka the top NBA duos, or specifically ranking every team's NBA duo, which is a pretty
hmm.
interesting concept and kind of builds into the next couple of weeks where we're just going to be spamming you guys with playoff content. We've seen that you guys have got around the podcast where we've talked about the playoffs. So there's going to be plenty of that stuff coming. So this week is kind of the last little step back before we go fully in on the postseason. So
Yeah, this is sort of the last week I've talked about all three NBA teams before we pretty much just completely cut out half of the league. So a big one. Hope you guys enjoy. We'll be going from 30th to first, build a bit of suspense for who we think is the best duo in the league. And this idea really came from a couple of weeks ago when Luca and Kyrie, it was like a little post-game interview. Um, and Luca said that he thought he was the Robin and Kyrie was the Batman of the team, which, I mean, it was a bit of a, he was trying to be humble, but I just thought it was interesting. And it got my brain running a little bit. So I thought it'd be a really cool cast topic. So hope you guys enjoy.
wait, did he say that Luke is the Batman and Kyrie's the Robin, or the other way
Said
around?
that he said Kyrie is the Batman and he's the Robin. Interesting.
I don't think so. But anyway,
Okay.
it's an interesting
No.
concept.
Yep.
So do you want to kick us
Started.
off, mate, with your 30th place?
Yep. So 30th. I myself have the Blazers. They're not the Detroit Pistons or the Washington Wizards, but I think they have the worst two best players in the league. I had their best duo as being Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant. I don't know what you had.
I had the same. I said um Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant slash DeAndre Ayton, whoever you really want to put as the Trailblazers duo, because they're the
Yeah,
worst duo in basketball.
I think yeah. Dominating isn't as good as these guys, despite what he probably thinks. But I've got a few stats here as well. They've played. This was one of the teams that played one of the least minutes in terms of like everyone playing on the court at the same time. They didn't really have consistent lineups throughout the year. So Simons and Grant played 791 minutes together, which really isn't much. They had an offensive rating of 108.1 and a defensive rating of 121.3. So the offense is terrible and their defense was terrible, and that's why they're low. They have a -2 on the second worst team in the league. So the next team that's going to be on the list for me. So yeah, I don't know where the Blazers are going to go. They're in a bit of a sticky situation at the moment. We'll see how Scoot progresses, and maybe he'll be a part of their best duo on the team in the coming years. But at the moment, Simons and Grant, their production together just isn't very good. And even though they're a -13, that's one of their best duos, like statistically on the team as well. Like when the two of them are on the court, the production that you get out of them. So yeah, Blazers are just in a bit of a awkward place right now, but I think next year it will improve.
I
What
just
do
think
you
they need to run the offense through Diop Reith. I think that's the
got?
key here.
Great
No,
idea.
no, no, no. Jokes aside, Jeremy Grant is a great player if he's the fourth option on your team, third, fourth option on your team, not as the one or two. And obviously Anthony, a young player, exciting player, and the potential for him is really sky high, as well as Scoot. People have been down on him this year, but I saw a graphic and it was like, don't be too harsh on rookie guards. It was talking about Grady Dick, but in comparison to Darius Garland, who was also not great as a rookie. So you can't put too much pressure early on guards. It's a big responsibility within the league. So we don't know what will happen with Scoot. Either way, yeah, the Trailblazers definitely have the worst duo on this list, whoever you really want to put. So
Yeah. So we'll go next. We'll do it like sort of snake, like we've been doing it in previous weeks. So who have you got at number 29?
yeah, so next up I have Triple J and GG Jackson. I didn't know who else you wanted to put. Did you put
GG.
GG?
I didn't put GG.
Who'd you put?
I had Bane
Ah, true. I don't
because
know. He's been injured.
they played enough minutes for my sort of criteria, but I don't know how yours worked. I understand GG. I do.
Yeah, I just thought that, Bane has spent a significant amount of time this year out with injury, and the two best players on the team for most of the season, unfortunately for Grizzlies fans, were Triple J, who is obviously very good, and GG Jackson, a young player, one of the youngest in the league, 19 years old, and has been putting together some solid performances at times. I know he cooked the Bucks one time when we played them. I think he had 26, 23, something like that. And Triple
Was
J,
that in the last like week?
I'm not sure, it might have been the time before that.
Because you've been on a little poor stretch at the moment. Hopefully that turns
We'll
around.
talk about that later. We'll talk about that later. Do
So
not start.
too early.
Yeah, but anyway, Triple J, you know what you're getting. He's a DPOY, great defender. Is he the man to lead an offense? No, he's not. He can do it on certain nights. He's just gonna score from the paint. He's got an ugly jumper. He's not gonna shoot the outside shots. But GG, a good solid young player. You had Bane. Yeah, look, that wouldn't probably change too much for me, even if he was there, to be honest. Or maybe a little bit, but yeah, I had GG and Triple J at the 29 spot. Did you have?
It's all really close for me for the bottom four teams because obviously there are only really a few games. There's only a few games difference between them. But I've got the Wizards because really in the second half of the season at least, they've been by far the worst team in the league. Um, Even with the Pistons having their historically bad start, they've turned it around just a little bit. Obviously, still a terrible team, but um, for the Wizards, I've got Paul and Kuzma because those are the two best players on their team. Individually, but as a duo, they've still got things to work out because they are shot chuckers for the most part. And I don't know, just I don't see the chemistry. I'm sure Wizards fans could agree. And I don't think that duo will really stick around for a whole lot longer, to be honest. It'd be interesting to see what the Wizards do. But they've got a negative net rating of 11, negative 11. So that's obviously terrible. And so when they're on the court together, they're losing by 11. So they're just poor. They're just not good. And a big part of that, they're similar to the Blazers, where it's both defense and offense. It's not really one in particular that's letting them down. It's a whole sort of range of things. And that also has a big part to do with the team because the starting lineup just isn't good. And the numbers, the Kuzma and Poole numbers is also based on the production that the starters have because obviously they're not the only players on the court. So yeah, bad teams will generally have bad duos, even if uh one of their players is better, if that makes sense. Except for one team, which we'll get into.
Yeah, obviously Kuzma and Poole are not the star players that you want on your team to lead the offense, and they do chuck up shots. They do have a number of lowlights from their time playing together at a short amount of time at that. And they're both very on and off players. They can have nights where Jordan Poole scores 38 points and Kuzma has an efficient 25, but it just doesn't happen enough on a regular basis. And even in those moments, they're usually not making the team plays and they're just taking shots. So
Mm.
yeah, not a great duo. The chemistry could be better, especially as a guard and a big forward combination. But you
I
know,
really wanted to toss up whether I should put Denny and Corey Kispert on because even though even though Jordan Poole and Kuzma are the best players on the team individually, hey, some people might not agree with me, but with that. But Denny in the second half of the year has been extremely good. And then Corey as well, just a consistent shooter. And I mean, for a team that's so inconsistent and has no consistent shooting, he's a player that can make an impact on any team with his shootings, and I think is probably going to get moved within the next couple of years to a more contending team, especially because he's not on a big contract. So those two players are also interesting. But I just wanted to sort of include the stock standard best players just so I could sort of because that's probably what most people would consider.
yeah, I think that's what most people consider would be the best duo on the team. But I actually was thinking about either Corey Kispert or yeah, Denny in the dynamic duo in one of those combinations. But I just thought,
Especially in the second half of the year, I think.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they beat the
Yeah.
Bucks the other day.
Yeah. Wow. Forgot about that. That's hey.
It's all right. That's all right.
Mentioned the Bucks twice now, so
It's
I'm
all right.
excited to actually get into that.
Later,
Um,
later, later.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Next, so yeah, it's me.
It's
Next
you.
I've got the Charlotte Hornets. So just quickly, I even though LaMelo Ball didn't play a whole bunch of minutes, and in fact, I'm going to talk about Brandon Miller and him, who only played 361 minutes together. Um, And that was mainly like early in the season as well, when Brennan Miller had his rookie issues. Obviously, coming into the league is hard, adjusting. So we didn't get the best production out of Brendan Miller at that point of the season. So the stats are a little bit skewed. But they had a -5 net rating. I'm mentioning this because they're the two best players on the team. At least next year, I'll say like that. That's the duo of the future. They've got a -5 net rating. And the only combination of players on the entire team to have played over 1,000 minutes together is Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller. Sorry, and Nick Richards as well. So that's the only combination, three-man combination that has played over 1,000 minutes together. But I'm gonna just talk about Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges as the best duo, even though Nick Richards is good. I think he got most of his minutes because Mike Williams was out for majority of the season. Um, so I'm going to
Yeah.
say that Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges are the best duo this year. And because I'm going to say that they are the best duo, I'm going to consider that in the grand scheme of this ranking. Brandon Miller and Miles Bridges have a -10 net rating. And that's again, all these bottom teams are really a combination of poor defense and poor offense, and that's why they're at the bottom. And it makes sense because, yeah, as I said, they're a bottom five team. They're just bad. And they don't really have a better duo either than at least over 1,000 minutes than Brennan Miller and Miles Bridges. So that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah. I didn't really know where to go with the Hornets combination either. And due to my criteria being what was happening most of the year, I did have Bridges and Miller as well. But it's not them that I have at 28. It's who you had at 29, and that's Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole.
Hmm.
And I think we already said enough about them. They're inefficient shot chuckers, don't contribute to winning basketball in really the slightest. That's be a bit harsh, but they're not a winning franchise. So I think it's a pretty no-brainer to put them near the bottom of this list.
Bottom five. I feel like our bottom five is going to be very much the same.
Yeah, I feel like it's just gonna be flipped around pretty much. And
Yeah.
speaking of that, at 27, I have the Hornets. I have Miles Bridges and Brandon Miller, which is who
Mm.
you had before. So I've already pretty much discussed it. But yeah, it's hard to rank a duo from a team where so many players roll in and out due to injury and other factors, and not many duos end up playing a lot of minutes together. So I settled in on Miles and Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller's been a star, really, a star in the making. He's shown, especially during the second half of the season, how well he can play. People wrote him off. He said PG was the GOAT, and people were quick to be like, "No, that's stupid," which it is. But you know,
As a person to craft your game off of as a young player, I feel like PG is a really good option. But
no,
so
yeah,
I see where he's at there, but calling him the GOAT is a little bit crazy.
he can be your GOAT. He's not the GOAT though.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
anyway, I think people were quick to write him off because they saw Wemby, they saw Scoot, the Thompson brothers, and they were quick to go, this guy's going to be the bust out of these players.
Hmm.
But he's proved that he can put up some big performances, especially in the second half of the season. Miles Bridges, we don't respect around here,
He's
but
back though. We'll give
he's
him that.
back and he puts up some good performances from time to time. That's all I'm going to say. Yep. So that's my
Yeah,
27.
he did have a stretch where he was scoring 30 points per game. So that probably upped his stats a lot in terms of like this duo sort of system that we got. So but still out of the consistent players that we got, even though really no players were consistent, that's the best duo that we got. So Memphis is my 26 spot. So Memphis was your 28, but again, all of these teams very similar. And no duo on the Memphis Grizzlies has played over 1,000 minutes together. Um, but their best duo for me is Bane and Jaren Jackson. Yours was GG, and I understand, but I'm just sort of saying the two best players on the team, even though they haven't played a whole lot of minutes together. But it is one of the most on the team. They've played 965 minutes together. Um, their defense was much improved than all of the other teams that I've got this low, with 114, which really isn't terrible. It's a bit of a around the middle of the table, and that's because of Jaren Jackson Jr. Um, and despite how short Desmond Bane's arms are, he's not the worst defender either. So,
The
um,
T-Rex.
the little T-Rex. But yeah, it's their offensive rating which really suffers, and that is because they don't have Jar. Um, yeah, the numbers reflect why they're the seventh worst team in the league, and the team wasn't constructed from the Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. pairing. It was constructed for the Jar build the team around him, which they've done really well, and I'm very much looking forward to him coming back next season because they went on that little run when he was back in the middle of the season, and they were looking really good. You're gonna have Gigi, Vince. They're all going to improve, and I think the Memphis Grizzlies will look good next year.
Yeah, well, I've already talked mainly about the Grizzlies, but it's also good to see a lot of younger players and players that normally don't get a lot of shine come through and play a big role, even though it's not winning basketball. It's still exciting to see, and
Minutes, space.
it could play in the Grizzlies' favor, similar to the way when Golden State had that down year when everyone was injured and they got. I mean, James Wiseman didn't pan out exactly how they thought, obviously,
Oh,
but at
but
the
Jordan
time,
Poole,
yeah, Jordan Poole, and it ended up contributing to them winning a championship. So not saying that they'll put the Grizzlies in as a championship contender straight away, but with Jar back and with a newly developed young core, who knows what could happen? They could be scary.
but who would have thought that the Golden State Warriors in 2021, when they were one of the worst teams in the league, would jump to the champion the next year? So anything could happen. It's even though they did have that championship pedigree beforehand with their run 2015, 16, 18, 2015, 17, 18. They did have championship pedigree there. So we'll see if the Memphis Grizzlies can make that little jump, which would be very exciting. It'll just add to the stacked West, which would be very interesting. Uh, now it's me, or is it you? Have you done your 26th?
No, I haven't.
What's your 26th?
My 26th pick is look, it's difficult because is this disrespectful or is this overrating? No, I'm gonna go Mikal Bridges and Cam Thomas slash whoever you really want to put there from the Nets because
Class.
there's not a clear number two to the duo. I mean, you could put Nick Claxton, defensive beast, had a bit of a down year, but I put Cam Thomas, even though he's very inconsistent. He does have nights where he can drop up to 40 points on good efficiency. But again, a player that puts up a lot of shots. Mikal Bridges hasn't had the same effect that he's had in previous years as a part of the Brooklyn Nets, but he's consistent. He's going to play every game. His game streak is left unbroken. He's going to go out there on the floor every night and contribute.
Hmm.
And with a roster that lacks a real star, they actually do a decent job at winning some basketball games. So yeah, but I really couldn't justify putting them any higher on this list. So they're at my 26.
Yeah, again, our bottom five will be very similar. Uh, sorry, you got back-to-back picks here, so
So
you
that's my
go again because
25.
I will talk about the Nets eventually. Sorry, yeah, 25.
Okay. So 25 for me. Again, like I'm thinking last second, I'm looking at my list. Do I want to change this right now?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I am going to go. mm, I'm gonna go Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren slash Jaden Ivey, whoever you're
Yeah.
putting as that duo. Yeah, I'm not gonna say who it was between because obviously we hear that after. But a very young team. Cade has a lot of potential. He definitely could be an all-star level player. Jalen Duren smashes the boards. We're seeing games where he's putting up 30 and 19 rebounds. And Jane Ivey, very fast combo guard, and he could. We've talked about him before. He could transition to be a great player. He's got the skill set too. And it's really about time for the Detroit Pistons. It's about getting their rotations right under Monty Williams so they can get that experience and play some winning basketball. People are quiet now. They're quiet now because at the start of the year they had such a bad start and they've actually turned it around a little bit and they're not even. I mean, I think they're the bottom at the moment, but at one point they were above the Wizards in the Eastern Conference and they've actually won some games. So respect
Do
to
you
the
know
Pistons
the difference maker as to why they're not as bad?
because
They
Jane
made their
Ivey's
first.
playing.
Nah, they got rid of Killian Hayes. That is literally the
Oh,
first step.
yeah, also that.
Monty Williams' son, he held him in his arms like a child.
I forgot about
You,
Killian Hayes.
yeah, he what's the word? Anyway, he pretty much tried to raise Killian Hayes because coming out of the NBA draft, I think he was fifth pick or something, in 2021 or 2020, either one. Um, Nurture is the word. Monty Williams tried to nurture Killian Hayes, giving him minutes, unnecessary minutes, but thankfully the GM removed him from the team, and that was really step one because now they can get good minutes. As we've mentioned in earlier episodes, Jaden Ivey getting more minutes and showing his production, which will only get better. So, um, yeah, the Pistons. I'm glad that we both didn't put them uh as low as their record shows because I think that the duos aren't as bad as the other ones that we've got under. Do you have anything else to add on Pistons?
I was just going to add on to what you said just then, and it's interesting
Yeah.
because duos obviously generally represent the level of the team, but they don't necessarily because you'll see as the list goes on, it's not just the best team from top to bottom. There's definitely some switch arounds between the duos on the team and the potential they have if they had
Mm.
better players around them. But yeah, that's what I had
Nice.
to say about the Pistons, a team that I really
Nice.
enjoy, and I think I'll enjoy to watch coming up seasons to come.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're at my 25.
Cool. I've also got the Pistons at the 25. So, um,
This guy knows
you had
ball.
net, you had Nets at the 26, but I don't have them in the bottom five. So, for what I got to say about the Pistons, I had Jalen Duren and Cade, even though Jaden Ivey, I just don't think they're as good on the court together. So I didn't put like as in a pairing, like
Yeah,
guard
that makes
backcourt
sense.
always work. So yeah, I just put a forward and a guard or a center, whatever you want to call them. Um, they've played 1,233 minutes together. Caden Duran. They've got an offensive rating of 110.4 and a defensive rating of 116.2. So that's improved from the teams we've already mentioned. both offensively and defensively, not considerably offensively, but definitely defensively, and a net rating of negative 4.7. If we're talking about future duos in the NBA, I'd have them much higher. And I think in future times that we do this, which I'm sure it's something you can redo every year, and it'll always stay interesting, and you'll always get different results. So in future years, I definitely think, as you said, they're a promising duo, so I'd definitely have them higher. But yeah, that's where I got the Pistons, 25.
Nice. And it's a snake draft or snake order. So you're 24.
This is where I have the Nets. So um instead of putting Cam Johnson, I put Nicholas Claxton. Again, because of that. Well, this time it's like a wing center pairing, but I just thought this was the better option. They played 1,673 minutes together. Their offensive rating together is 107.7, and their defensive rating is 113.2, which makes their net rating negative 5. I put them above the Pistons because I just like that duo more. I think Claxton is a more. I feel like Duran and Claxton are somewhat similar. They're not big 3-point presence. Really, Duran not at all. Claxton gets an occasional shot off, but he's not good at all from three. But I think Duran's more of a rebounding presence, while Claxton's more of a defensive presence, which adds to the defensive rating a little bit. They've got a better defensive rating by three, a factor of 3. So um, and although they have a reasonable defensive rating, they have the worst offensive rating on the team in terms of duos playing together. So that's what really pushes them down a bit. But none of the other duos on the team have played 1,000 minutes together. So that's why I put these two. But I'd put them 24 because I don't think they're as bad as the Pistons, and their record doesn't reflect that either. So there I have put the record into consideration, and that's sort of why I've got them there.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We had the same bottom, however many, pretty much just
Bottom
flipped
six,
around,
yeah.
which makes sense. And
Yep.
I'm going to take it away with my number 24, and this is the one I was highly considering, and that is Victor Wembanyama and Devin Vassell. Because
This is where our
Wemby
list is completely different.
Wemby is such a talent that prepare for the glazing because I love Wemby, but he's such a talent that it was so difficult to rank as a duo because the Spurs didn't play the best basketball this year because Devin Vassell is a shot chucker and he's going to have inconsistent nights and he's going to put up a lot of shots either way. And sometimes he's not going to pass to Wemby when he should, and he's going to try and shoot in clutch time.
Sorry,
But
sorry.
as
Were you Vassell or Sohan?
Vassell,
Okay, good.
good.
That's all.
Okay. Yeah, but I think as the season's gone on, they've learned to put the ball in Wemby's hands during those later situations we saw against who was it? Who was it against? Where he hit the tough walk off three. I should know. I forgot. It was about a couple of weeks ago. But
I've
yeah,
forgotten this.
yeah. Anyway, that was a tough shot, and yeah, this is the case of a lopsided duo. One young player who's really not saying Devin Vassell's not good because he's a good NBA player, but Wemby is definitely the better half of that duo by a considerable margin, and that made it difficult for me to rank. But they come in here at 24.
Nice. Yeah. I think you're gonna freak out a little bit when you find out where I have the Spurs, but but
This guy's glazing.
yeah. No, I've also like looked at the stats a fair bit. And the stats really like they're on the side of the Spurs, so I would just say that. But um Snake, so
I don't run stats.
you
I
just
look at it with my eyes.
for the game.
That's no ball. Okay, next up we've got number 23, and I have hmm, again. There's about three in a row that I could kind of interchange here, but I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm going to go Larry Markkinen and Colin Sexton of the Utah Jazz. A team that
Okay.
obviously outperformed what people expected them earlier in the year, and those two had a big part to do with it. Sexton comes off the bench, leads that secondary unit, and puts up, he's going to put up points. Lowry is the king of getting 22 points a night. I have him in my fantasy. I see it. A shooting big man, the finisher. Um,
hmm
yeah, I don't really have many notes to talk about them, but they outperformed what people expected of them. They're a good guard, power forward, combo, 1-2 punch, and they run well as a duo. I don't know what the stats say about that one, but I think so. And
hmm
yeah, that's why they come into at 23, and you'll see the next two or three that could potentially interchange with them here.
Okay. Um,
I'm scared. I'm scared what you're gonna say.
no, it's nothing too abnormal. I think you have a very similar one. I've got the Raptors at 23. And I'm gonna go Scotty Barnes and RJ. I don't know what did you put?
That's who I went.
Nice. Um, because I think Siakam has actually played the most with Scotty in terms of like that he's played more minutes than RJ has with Scotty Barnes, but obviously not on the team anymore. Um, and they have a net rating of -2, so we're getting to the almost the positive ratings. So this is where um the upside of the league sort of is. And they suffer mainly um on defense. Even though it is also there is a little bit of an offensive problem. They've got a rating of 113.5 offensively and 115.8 defensively. They've only played 543 minutes together, so this is the smallest sample size I've got in terms of every duo that I've got here. And so, because of the sample size, I don't know. I sort of Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett has become a better player since he's had a bit more of a role on the Toronto Raptors on a worse team. And I think that the duo itself will be better in the coming years as well, like a lot of these teams at the bottom. Um, so yeah, it's a small sample space, but I think that's sort of why I've got the Toronto Raptors this low. Um, so yeah, that's my reasoning.
Yeah, that makes sense. And spoilers, but yeah, they're coming the next couple picks for me as well. And
hmm
RJ has definitely improved his game going to the Raptors. I'm a big fan of RJ. I feel like people unnecessarily hate on him even when he was on the Knicks just because he's an inconsistent finisher and
mm
didn't shoot efficiently. But I still like his game, and it's good to see him, even though the Raptors aren't, they're kind of in the limbo of being a mediocre team this year. It's nice to see him contribute to winning some games, and uh, not to mention with Quickly and other parts of those trades. So yeah, I see where you're coming from with that one. And you have the next pick.
I got Atlanta. I mean, look at
Really?
yeah,
That's so
yeah.
interesting.
Because I don't like. We spoke about this last week. I don't like Trae Young and DeJounte as a duo at all. Statistically, they're bad, and you can just see it as well. Um, they
That's
are up.
yeah, it's
Sorry.
interesting to see it's interesting to see we've gone kind of different routes in terms of, the what's it called? The I'm looking for the word. What's it called? The criteria. We've gone different in terms of the criteria for our lists. Had to think a while for
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
As a duo,
Yeah.
I'm sort of as a duo itself. I don't like them. Um, yeah, together they've played 1,131 minutes. Um, and like the team in general, because this duo plays really the most out of any other combination of players on the team, it sort of reflects their team defensive rating as well. They've got a defensive rating of 120 point 7, which is one of the worst in the league, and it really pushes their team potential down. Because offensively they're not the worst as a duo, but because obviously you get the Trae Young production, you got the DeJounte production. But I found it interesting that the team's best statistical duo is Bogdanovich and Bay,
Really?
which I thought was interesting per
That
net
is very
rating.
interesting.
And ironically, they're the best defensive duo as well, and that's why they're the best in terms of, and they've played 1,000 minutes. So I sort of just wanted to include that there, that the fact that neither DeJounte or Trae are actually like the most productive partner. And I think that's also because they're not terrible defensively. Bay is not a bad defender. Bogdanovich isn't as good, but he produces offense. He's one of their best offensive player. He can go off for 20 on any given night. So statistically, I just wanted to include that as well.
Yeah, look, that's giving me a bit of a shock, a little bit of step back. And you'll see come my list, come further up my list. And so that was your 23?
Yeah.
Okay. So at my 23, I have RJ and Scotty as well.
Okay.
Obviously, so our lists do have something in common. But it's interesting.
Mhm.
I like to see the differences in opinion. It
Mhm.
leads to good conversation. But anyway, RJ and Scotty. Scotty obviously an all-star, um, puts up great numbers on a nightly basis. We see the potential in what he can become and how he can potentially lead a good team or definitely contribute to a good team. And RJ, like I said before, I really like his game. I like how he's improved. He's averaging, I checked the other day, about 17, 18 on the Raptors. So
Mhm.
definitely an increase from playing on the Knicks. Less pressure, no pressure at, is it still Scotiabank where they play? Can't even remember these
Yeah.
days, but
But I saw something which I thought was interesting. They have the sixth highest attendance out of any team in the NBA this season. In total, they've had 7,600 761,000, whilst the highest is the Bulls with 323,000. So they do have a lot of fans, but New York is third with 769,000. So it's still like a lot of pressure, but obviously the passion between the fan bases, I think, is a little bit different. I feel like Knicks have more of a critical fan base, let's say, than the Toronto Raptors, who are more loving.
well,
Yeah,
Canadians are nicer, aren't they?
they are.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
That's what
And
they
yeah, they probably get their attendance because it's one team for the whole country. I feel like they get more support
definitely.
in general. But still,
100.
yeah, my point is less like fan pressure, I feel like has eased off and mentally, and he's getting up more shots, but mentally he's playing at a higher level than he was before. So yeah, I have them at my 23 and then at my 22. Oh, this is so interesting because do I go off of what has happened this year or what is happening now? Because that's what I'm thinking
As long as they're still on the, I think as a whole, as long as they're still on the same team, of course.
as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with my gut here, and I'm gonna go at 22, DeMar DeRozan and Kobe White. That's how I would put as the
Hmm.
duo. I know they're both. You could say DeRozan's a guard or a forward. I know you said you didn't like putting two guards together, but they're the two best on the team when Zach LaVine being out. Um, Obviously Kobe. You guys, if you've been tuning in for the past couple or since the start, really, talked about how underrated Kobe White has been this year and how much he's improved as a player. DeMar, we know what DeMar's going to do. He's going to go out, average about 25 points a night. hit a couple game winners. Mid range is going to be consistent, and that's that. So they're kind of at the point. We're at the point of the list where it's, this is a good duo, but it's nothing. It's nothing special in my eyes. So that's why they're at the 22 spot. We've said that one.
Yeah. I think you might from here on you might have at least one all-star, which is sort of what I see in my list. But yeah, I have the Bulls. So I'm gonna say I have the Bulls bottom 10. So we're sort of jumping around here a little bit because you've got a couple that are three heads ahead and three spot a couple spots behind me as well. But they're sort of the same range. But it is still very interesting because um yeah, it is still a difference in the list. But at 22, I have Atlanta. Sorry, did I
You
just
said
say
that.
that? I
You
did.
said
I
that.
was talking. I was talking about that. So 21, I have the Jazz, Sexton, and the Marksman. So where did you have
Yeah.
them? You
Okay.
had them 20. You had them 22 or 23.
Yeah, I think it was 23. I
Mm-hmm.
have I have jumped around. Even what I've got written down, I changed it last second because I'm thinking.
Right,
I'm constantly thinking.
on the fly.
Yeah.
Uh, so this is where we sort of get to the positives. In terms of like production. Um, as you said, as a duo, you said you predicted that they were better than the team production sort of. If so, when they're on the court, the team does considerably better, and they do because the Jazz's net rating on the season is negative 4.7, whilst when Markkanen and Sexton are on the floor together, they have a negative 0.6 net rating, which isn't bad. It's around 500 when they're on the floor together. They have only played 1,000 minutes. I thought it would be good if I could find per 100 possessions because then we could or per 36 so that we could see um sort of each duo in the same sort of minute range to see what the production looks like. But
My boy's deep
um
diving.
I didn't know how to access that. I think there would be sites where you could find that, but they'd be paid subscriptions and stuff. So I'm on holidays. I don't want to spend any more money. Um, so this is what I've got. Yeah, they've played 1,000 minutes together. Offensive rating 119.4, which is really good. It's really good. But defensively 120 um defensive rating. So that's one of the worst in the entire league in terms of duos. So that's what really sets them back. And I thought that was interesting because Markkanen isn't a bad defender. He's a rim protector and he has the ability to guard the perimeter as well because he's one of a kind in terms of how tall he is and how well he moves. Um, and then again, Sexton, who isn't the worst perimeter defender, but is a shocking interior defender. So I think that's what sets them back, as well as the team itself. Um, they aren't a great defensive team. In fact, they are the worst in the league with a net defensive rating of 121.7. Um, so yeah, it's the defense that puts them this low. But again, they've got an all-star on their roster, so um, not the worst of duos. If they get someone that they can pair up with um the marksman, then I think they could do a lot better. Possibly a defensive perimeter guard, I think would be good. And then again, I was also going to put Jordan Clarkson, but I just waited up and I thought Sexton has played a little bit better this year. So, and they've played more minutes together as well. So that's why I put them there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I completely agree with everything you said. I had them a couple of spots lower, but I'm starting to realize what our differences in this list are, and that's that I feel like I'm just uh what's the word? I'm losing my words today. You can tell it's late here. It's
Yeah.
nearly 10. I'm basing my criteria more on talent than you are, and you're doing more on the actual duos, how they play together, which is just two different ways of looking at it.
It's
So
interesting. You get two perspectives in one video. So there you go.
yeah,
You guys get
two
a
for
lot out of
one,
it.
2 for 1, guys. You're welcome. You're
Two for
welcome.
one. Uh, Now was it me back to back?
Yeah, it's you. You're 20.
At 20, I got the Bulls. So you had them a couple spots behind. Um, I got Kobe White and DeMar like you because again they are the best duo on the team. If they had Zach LaVine playing the whole season, then maybe you'd have Zach LaVine, even though he has had an off season. But they've played a lot of minutes together. These two, they've played 2,000 minutes, which is the most that we've got so far on the list. Um, and again, it is sort of because DeMar's a decent defender. Kobe's not a bad defender. He's good enough on the perimeter. That they don't really suffer offensively or defensively. They're just really mediocre at both as a duo. Um, but they do have a positive net rating of 1. So they are winning. This is the first duo that is actually winning when they're on the court together. Sorry. No, they're sorry, I was reading off of some other stat I had. They have a negative 0.6, so almost positive. But then again, they are mediocre both, like I said. And they're pretty good considering the Bulls' net rating as a team is negative 1.6. So they're losing in general as a team, but with Kobe White and DeMar on the floor, they're a little bit better, which makes sense because they're two of the best players. But their best duo per like stats. I'm gonna do this like I did with another team. I forgot who it was. I think it might have
Yeah,
been
go ahead. You said with Atlanta.
yeah. So their best duo is actually DeMar and Andre Drummond.
Really,
Now,
the
can
big
you
penguin.
when I say that, can you sort of figure out why they would be the best duo? Little quiz.
That's my ball knowledge. I don't know. Andre Drummond, a great rebounder. I guess because I actually don't know. What's the answer?
Second chance points.
That's
Like
what
I
I was
said,
gonna say.
I dove
I
into the
swear.
stats. It is because of second chance points. Their offensive rebound percentage, so they're not a good rebounding team at all. Offensively, their only good offensive rebounder is Andre Drummond, and as a duo, as a combination of two players, uh, their offensive rebound percentage is up 13%, which is considerable from their team average of, I believe it was 20% odd, but it jumps all the way up to 33% when Drummond's on the floor. So that's a that's like 2 points every few possessions. That is just second chance points when they're on the court together. So um I just thought that was interesting. Again, I'll throw a few of these in as well because I think it's really interesting to see who are the two most productive players on these teams. But I'm gonna have the Bulls at 20th.
Yeah, nice. And now it's gonna be my 20th. And this is really interesting because now I have Trae and DeJounte. Now I have Trae and DeJounte at number 20. You've got me thinking, and that's pretty much where I had them before you said anything. But they are not a good duo in terms of chemistry at all. And as much as I look at talent, which I've been doing throughout this list, it's not enough. Trae has, not had as great a years as he has had in the past, still an all-star. And DeJounte has felt the impact of Trae being the main ball handler on the team. We've seen when Trae's been out, DeJounte's actually playing better. And
Ball.
yeah, balling out, beating the Celtics. So yeah, that's my reasoning. But I do have them at 20. I did have them a bit higher than you did.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, yeah, again, similar reasoning. So
You'd have to say for the Rockets, it's Jalen Green and Sengun. That's the duo. Is that the duo you said?
no,
Really? Do I
But
get to know
again, we've got all of ours in very similar ranges.
do I get to know who your Rockets duo you picked was?
Yeah. You want me to
Yeah,
mine was
I was
Jalen
asking.
Alperoon.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I thought you asked was that who you had at 19? No,
Oh
I didn't
no,
have
I
I don't
meant did
have
you
them
have
at
the same?
19, but I do have Alperoon and I do have Jalen Green.
Okay, yeah, and I thought that was interesting because Jalen Green actually plays better without Şengün on the floor, and we've seen this. Or is it just because he's having a kid? Who knows? But the stats say that he plays better without Şengün on the floor when the pace of the game is faster, and he's more the main man on the team. So I don't know, it's interesting. But yeah, as a duo, Şengün, obviously, Baby Jokic plays the game at such a his own pace, creates his own shots, and can dish to his teammates. And if Jalen Green's knocking down shots like this, like I know they're not going to make the playoffs or the play-in now. Probably, I don't know if there's any chance left, but it really would have been interesting to see what they would have done during the play-in. That would have been real interesting. But yeah, I have them at 19. Definitely a duo. If that remains the main duo of the Rockets, definitely one to look out for in the coming season.
Yep. Yeah. At 19, I've got the Spurs.
Way ahead of where I put them. That's
So
the
I
main
got them above
disagreement
the
so far.
Wolves. I've got them above the Jazz. I've got them above the Hawks. I've got them above Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, which I think was a hot take. Even like when I wrote it down, I thought the stats were just too compelling. I didn't want them to put that. I didn't want to put them that high. But then again,
Lay down the stats on me.
it does reflect Wemby's production and his impact. So it just shows how amazing he is as a player himself. And the Spurs are one of the worst teams in the entire league this year. Um, in fact, they are the worst team. First of all, the worst team in the West, but they're 19 and 58, which puts them as the tied third worst team in the league. Yet when Vassell and Wembanyama are on the floor together, they have a net rating of positive 1.3, the first positive team that we've got on the list so far. So when Wemby and Vassell are on the court together, at all times they're winning, which is crazy.
That's really interesting, actually. I would not
Yeah,
have thought that at all.
yeah, and they're the two best players on the team, and um, there's no better combination of players than Wemby and Vassell, which makes sense because they've got offensive production because Vassell he's efficient this year, unlike other years, and he has one of the best defenders in the league. Draymond said a couple of days ago he reckons that Wemby should be the defensive player of the year, and that's coming from a two-time defensive year, a player of the year
But
winner. So
also Draymond hates Rudy Gobert.
oh yeah, this is true. There is bias there. But then again, he did say that Rudy Gobert should have won it um a couple months ago. So and we have seen Wemby's he had 9 blocks the other day. We have seen his defensive production get even better, which we didn't think was possible from a rookie at least. Um
Oh, brother.
sorry, I had it's during the break. Um yeah, no, the Spurs when Wemby and Vassell on the court together, they're winning. That is mainly because of defense. Their defensive rating is 107.5, which is easily the highest that we've had on the list so far. But it's also one of the highest in terms of duos that I've got on the entire list. They're elite defensively when they're on the court together. This is mainly due to Wemby, um, and as well as the cast around them, because there are five other players on the court, three other players on the court at all times when they're on the court together. But then their offensive rating brings them down because they've got an offensive rating of 108.8, which is not great. It's mediocre. So it puts them as low as they are. But and then again, you put them lower, and I thought that I should have put them lower until I dove into the stats a little bit. But Wemby, regardless of who he's with next year, hopefully, I really hope that they bring in someone that's a better playmaker and potentially borderline, if not an all-star,
Trey
borderline
Young.
all-star.
Trey Young.
Trey Young, we've both vouched for that, but anyone, I think Wemby, with the amount that he's going to improve, I'm going to have him even higher on the list because a lot of people think that he'll be like a top 10 player in the league, based on his how good he is this year and the fact that we've seen players like Shaq, players like Tim Duncan, um, other great players who have had great rookie seasons. They've been top 10 players the year after as well. So history repeats itself. Um, and that's something I've also learned in Rome. There's a lot of history here, so I'm going to bring that up.
Come on, man.
But yeah, Wemby's gonna be even higher on this list for me next year. So that's just how
Yeah,
good he is.
yeah, I don't doubt that, but I just think for me, it was just too lopsided of a duo for me to put them as high as you did. I definitely do think it's a hot take. I feel like most people probably have them in the middle of where we put them. I feel like, but yeah, it was just too lopsided for me. I think Wemby carries most of the, or at least some of the statistics you're talking about. So, but I get why you put them there.
Mm. It just yeah, it shows how impactful he is.
Yeah, yeah, one of the most impactful youngsters the game has seen.
Exactly. Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
So at number 18, I have who you had in the last pick, the Houston Rockets. So Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün, they've played a majority of the season together, except for when Şengün was injured in this last portion of the season, like you said, with his injured knee and ankle. I think it's mainly the knee though. Sorry, mainly the ankle. But when they're on the court together, again, it's sort of like a Trey Young, DeJounte Murray situation where, as you said, when they're on the court individually, they're a lot better as individuals, but they're not as bad as Trey Young and DeJounte are as a duo. They've got an offensive rating of 114.3, defensive of 114.4. They're really mediocre. And despite the Spurs having a positive net rating, the Rockets actually have a negative net rating, but I couldn't bring myself to put Wemby and Vassell above Alperon and Jalen Green. So I just couldn't do it because I think that would have been a little bit outrageous putting them at 18. And I think you have to rely more on uh your base of knowledge of the game rather than
Vibes.
stat vibes rather than stats. So yeah, they're just mediocre at both. As a duo, they're not super impactful. But as I said, individually they're great, especially Şengün. And their best statistical duo on the team, again, I'm gonna bring this up again, is Freddie VanVleet and Şengün, which makes sense because Freddie's more of a system player. Uh, he can play make, but then again, he's a great player for having Şengün running the offense, Freddie moving off the ball, unlike Jalen Green does most of the time. And so that's where that sort of production comes with. It's sort of a little bit, it's like a downgraded Jamal Murray and Jokic when you talk about Freddie VanVleet and Şengün. They're just like a Walmart version of Jokic and Murray. So I
It's an
found that interesting.
interesting, yeah, interesting comparison.
Do you sort of agree?
Well, obviously, Şengün is baby Jokic, so the comparison is definitely there for that. Fred VanVleet and Jamal Murray. I've never thought about them as being comparable, but
No. But like as in like off ball movement, pick and roll, that's where I sort of got it from.
it's a
3-point
stretch.
shooting,
It's a stretch, but
ability to play make. Okay, maybe I'm tripping. Maybe
maybe he is tripping.
I'm gonna back myself up, but who do you have at 18?
So at 18, I have Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam because I again haven't played together for very long. Obviously, the two best players on the team, talent wise. But also, I thought about this is probably what you've done, but I thought about putting Miles Turner as the second player in that duo.
I
But I just
thought
went
about
off,
it, but I thought it'd be way more interesting to put Pascal.
yeah, I went off the talent basis, and
And
I haven't done
we
it.
as a podcast, we haven't really dove into Pascal. Well, I've sort of done a statistical dive here, so we haven't statistically dove into Pascal and um Paris yet, and that's because we didn't have the sample size. But I think now we've got a little bit better of an idea, so that's why I put Pascal. So sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, but anyway, I went. Tyrus is returning to his all-star form. He's definitely ramping it back up as we head into the playoffs. Pascal has fit in well, I think, as an Indiana Pacer, and is having much more impact than he did on the Raptors. But the Pacers as a whole are a very depth-driven team. They're a team driven by, your best player is only as good as your worst player, like your whole system. And they rely on a lot of role players to help propel their offense, which was the best in the league. Your Isaiah Jacksons, etc., off the bench.
Nemhard Browns. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You look down the stat sheet and you go, no one had a big game, but 4 or 5 players all had 15 points. That's how the Pacers play basketball. So it's hard to narrow down really to a duo. So that's why they're this low. Some people might think that's low. But yeah, Tyrese and Pascal at 18 for me. And I think I have the next one, snake order. So 17. It's interesting because some people might be upset at this. And by some people, we know who. I'm putting Paolo and Franz at
Nice.
17. He just walked out of the room. Shout out Messi. But
Shout out
anyway,
Messi.
but yeah, Paolo and Franz, both forwards, again, the same position. Franz, a great playmaker. Paolo, a great scorer, an all-star this year. A great talent. But a similar team to the Pacers in the fact that they have a lot of role players who contribute. So it's not really a standalone 2 stars who make up the team. So it's to their detriment, but obviously the Magic having a fantastic year. And I'll be interested to see what they do in the playoffs. But yeah, I have the Magic duo, Pal and Franz at 17.
At 17, I also have Carlo and France. I didn't. I honestly thought this was a little bit crazy because of how good the Magic are. But then again, they have a well-built team, um, a young team, but a well-built team. Um, but yeah, as a duo, they're good. Like you said, playmaker in France and a scorer and potentially a top 10 player, future player in the league in Paulo Banchero. Um, and as a young team, they have a net rating of 1.3, so they're winning when they're on the court, which makes sense because they have a winning record and they're one of the best teams in the league. But we say that they're a duo, but they're also like the next best player isn't that far behind because Jonathan Isaac has had an unbelievable defensive year. He's probably, in my opinion, the most versatile defender in the league because he's a shot blocker and he's almost back at the form that he was before he got that terrible injury in 2020 in the bubble. Um, so I think that's only going to get better. The Orlando Magic are only going to get better, and yeah, I think that'll be led by Franz and Paolo. But I just think they also just need something else. I don't know what it is, but Franz Wagner as a his ceiling, I don't know whether it's like championship caliber second option. I'm not sure. Some people might have something else to say, but what do you have to say?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought too deeply about that question. I can see where you're coming from as yeah, I feel like Franz has a ceiling that is lower than Paolo. Paolo has the potential to be, yeah, like you said, top 10, top 5 player in the league in the future. So
Yeah,
yeah, I feel like they do need some more pieces if they're going to be a championship contender. They've shown what they've done with limited pieces, or we could call them limited pieces, but role
Mm.
players and the system that they run. And I think
Just
this is a
really
prime.
defensive system, much like New York. So again, if we get that battle in the playoffs, I think that's gonna be a great battle.
Yeah, and I think that
It'll be a dogfight.
a dog fight. And I think this is a prime example of what we were saying before in the fact that that the joys, the order of them kind of represents team success, but it doesn't always because the Magic as a team are playing better than 17th, which is their individual top duo is 17th.
Hmm.
But yeah, I thought it was interesting.
Yep. That is interesting. Um, so it's my pick.
It
Um,
is
and
16.
at 16, I have the Pacers. So I put them a couple spots ahead of where you had them. Again, like I said, I had Pascal and I had Hallie. They've played 780 minutes together, so yeah, it's more than I thought it would be, honestly. They haven't played 1,000 minutes, which is sort of my criteria, but it's not bad. We still get a decent sample size. Defensively, they're a lot better with Pascal and than they were before the All-Star break and before they traded for him. Um, when they're on the court together, the offense has dipped a little bit. They're a top five offensive team, not as good as they were again in the first half of the season because Halliburton hasn't played as well, and the offense was a little bit shaky when Pascal was first traded. But they have a net rating of 3, so it is a good duo. They do win their games, um, despite Hallie again not playing so well in the second half of the season. But yeah, uh, their defensive rating is better than the team average when they're just in general. So when they're on the floor, they have a defensive rating of 111.7, and their team defensive rating is 119. So it is better um in the grand scheme of the season, and that is a big part to do with Pascal and Turner at the center and the forward because they've got more length and they're more of a presence inside. So um yeah, that's why the pace is at 16.
Yeah, sweet. Pretty much, yeah, similar to what I was saying in the fact that we had those two just switched around for the same teams. And I think
Yeah.
this is where it's really interesting for me because from the 16 spot to probably the 12 were my biggest points of contention on this whole list because there's
Yeah.
different directions you can go with it. But at 16, I have, I hate to say this, Steph Curry and Jonathan Kuminga. You're going crazy.
Wow. First of all, I didn't have Kaminga.
Who'd you have? Clay,
Nope.
Dre.
Yeah. Yeah. I had Draymond because I think as a duo, they're the best like combination of players on the team, in my opinion. Because there isn't really star power in terms of a second option at the moment. So
No, I just went with the star power of the two players. And Curry, as much as he brings this joy up again, it is like I was saying with Wemby, it is lopsided in the fact that Kuminga is not an all-star and nearly all the or an all-star caliber player yet. And nearly every duo above this is made up of two all-star or two all-star caliber players. So I just couldn't bring myself to put them any higher. You know what Curry's capable of in the playoffs. I'm not diminishing that at all. And they're a great duo, but I just couldn't put it above 15 other duos in the NBA, which is crazy to say. When you think about that's literally the middle of the pack. But
yeah.
there's too many good players. That's my point. There's too many good players. Come at me in
Yeah.
the comments, call me a casual, but that's why I have them at 16 and I have the next pick as well. So
Yeah.
another one that it's contentious. It really is. Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen
What the fuck?
slash Darius Garland. Whoever you want to put there.
Wow. Wow. Oh my God.
I knew that would be a big one.
That is so different to what I've got.
yeah, we've gone different directions here, and I thought this might happen. But
I'm
yeah,
interested to hear what you have to say.
if you don't want to go two guards, Darius Garland has taken a step back in terms of his offensive production this year. He
You hear
has.
that?
No.
Sorry, no, sorry. There was a loud dog outside. I don't know if it picked it up.
Oh no, you made a face, and I was like, he has. Look at the stats.
No, no, no.
But
Sorry. What did you say? Because there was a loud ass dog and I couldn't hear you.
I said Darius Garland has taken a step back in offensive production this year. He has. And Jarrett Allen, we know who he's going to bring to the table. Just a defensive beast, going to block shots, going to protect the paint. And that's part of what makes the Cavs such a good team this year is the balance between offense and defense, which we've covered in the last episode of the podcast pretty much.
Hmm.
But yeah, this is probably the single hardest thinking that I had to do for a team. Because you know me, I whipped this
He's
list up just
100%
before
of
we
his
did it.
brain.
Huh?
Sorry, what did you say?
I said,
Oh, that's awkward.
you know me, I whipped up this list just before we started. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
I'm not gonna front like I've done as much research as you. But
The voice, man.
just as of what the joys above are capable of, I just couldn't put them any higher. So yeah, 15. I'm interested to see where the list go from here. But
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland or Jarrett Allen,
Mhm.
15.
Top 15. I have Zion and Ingram. uh, and again, I went into numbers, so that's why I have them at this point, at this position. But pretty much, sorry, just let me technical.
Yeah, I think we're getting a bit different here.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, Zion and Ingram. So they've played 1,000 minutes together, offensive rating of 114.7. And you guys see what sort of trend I'm doing here. Looking at the offense, looking at the defense, and then like sort of going off what I know to sort of position them as like a swaying factor. A defensive rating of 111.5 and a net rating of 3.2. So they're similar in terms of net rating, the net rating of Pascal and Halliburton. And really, as Zion and Ingram, I don't think they're the best pairing on the team. I think McCollum works much better with Zion. And Ingram as an individual player, I think works well on the system as well. So yeah, they're not bad defensively. They're not bad offensively. In fact, they're pretty good offensively when they're on the court together. But yeah, I've just gotten this low because as a pairing, they're not as good. I'm staying consistent with sort of what I'm doing here. And talking about like them as a two-man sort of thing and how their offense runs when both of them are on the court together. And I thought it was interesting. Their best pairing is actually you guess. It's not what you think.
McCollum and Valanciunas.
If Valanciunas is involved.
Valanciunas and Dyson Daniels.
Hell no.
Trey
Not
Murphy.
enough of. Nah. On a very similar line though. They look the same.
Oh, Herb Jones.
Yeah. Herb
Really?
Jones and Valanciunas. Yeah. They have a net rating of 6.5, which puts them in the top 10 of duos in the entire league. Do you believe that? Top 10 of duos
No,
in the entire league.
I don't.
And their their defense is the exact same as Zion and Ingram, but their offense jumps to 118 net rating. So
That's so
sorry,
strange. I wonder why. Like looking at that initially, you'd be like, oh, it's because the defense is better. Like, or the
it's
defense
definitely
needs
to
to jump.
do with the other pieces because of course they've got Zion on, they've got McCollum on pretty much at all times. They're not gonna run. They're not gonna leave Herb or Val to run the offense. So I'm sure they've got another superstar. I feel like not another superstar, another star. Whether it's Ingram, McCollum, Zion on the court, and the system just must work really well when Herb, obviously a good 3-point shooter, Valanciunas, good rebounder, decent offensive player. So yeah, I just that again is interesting. And that really shows how Herb and Valanciunas are valuable pieces on the team, and they impact winning in like more than probably most people think.
So that was your number 14.
That was 15, so I've got 14 now.
Oh, yep, yep, yep.
My 14 is De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. Yeah, they're below Steph Curry and Draymond Green for me. And this is getting a
I don't
little
know
bit
about
like
that.
this is getting no, hear me out. This is getting like into territory where the duos above them are both all stars. Well, Fox and Sabonis, they probably should have been all stars, but the people above them are all stars. And then you also need to include the fact that my criteria is production when they're on the court together, because there are pieces around Foxes and Sabonis. They're a deep team, and there are pieces around them that make the team as good as they are. And individually, their statistics are really good, but not always. The statistics don't always affect impact. Like Luka Doncic, really good stats. His impact isn't as good as most people would think. He's with him off the court, they're winning almost as much as when Luka is on the court, like as in like net rating when he's on and off the court. So that's another example of that. Their net rating is around the same as Zion and Ingram. And again, really good offensive team. A lot of second chance buckets with Sabonis on the court. And I found that's really important when talking about duos. When you've got offensive rebounding, you add extra points to possessions. So yeah, a higher offensive rating, which leads to higher net rating. And they've played a lot of minutes together. They've pretty much played most of the season. Fox has been out in stints, but defensively, they're not fantastic. Fox is an okay offensive, perimeter defender, and Sabonis isn't amazing for a big man. That's obviously not his specialty. He's a great playmaker and offensive player, which is why he's so valuable to that team. And so that's why they're not special on defense like a lot of these teams above them are. So, and they're not good enough on offense to sort of override that defensive sort of thing. So
Yeah, I'm just thinking about my list because it's very different from yours. I'm not saying that's a
mm,
bad thing. I stand by my choices. I'm just
mm,
thinking over criteria, etc., etc.
mm,
Yeah, so it's me with 14.
mm.
And this is another
I mean,
team that you haven't said yet.
mm,
And it's the
who is it?
OKC Thunder with SGA.
You're tripping. You are tripping.
No,
They're not in your top 10.
no, they're not. But
You're gonna be shocked at where they are for me. So yeah,
strictly
just say
duo
that.
wise, you said before that all the rest of the two players are all stars. It's Shea and there's no other all star. So
But Jamal
that's
Murray is an all-star, and you would put
no, no, no,
Jokic
no,
and
no.
Jamal Murray as top three duo in the league.
You're correct, but I don't think it has the same impact. There's a variety of factors, but I don't want to delve too much into Denver right now. But the connection between and the chemistry between Jokic and Murray is too much to overlook. But in terms of my criteria, it has to be that kind of level for me to really, uplift that team that high.
Okay.
And this, yeah, look, the next from the two teams that I said last round to the next four teams are all interchange. Like, I don't know. I had to think really hard about where I wanted to put them. But I've gone SGA and whoever you want to put with him, Chet or J
Who
Dub.
who would you put?
I guess Chet
Because
because I like the
for me,
guard.
I'll tell you, numbers wise, it's almost identical. But who
Really?
would you put? Yeah.
I put Chet because I like the guard big combo more.
Hmm.
But J Dub's the second best scorer, especially at the moment on the team. So I would understand if you put him there as well. But yeah, a bit of contention in the list.
It's great. It's great for content. So
Get them fired up.
Yeah,
Complain in the comments on my
guys,
villain arc.
tell us who you hate and what you hate.
Tell us
Let it
if you
rip.
hate us. Yeah, no. But anyway, then at 13, I'm looking. Do I want to change this right now on the fly?
I love it.
Yes, I am. At 13, I'm going Zion and Brandon Ingram.
Yep.
I agree with what you said in the fact that CJ and Zion work better, but I also think that Zion and BI are a good pairing in itself, especially when Zion runs the point Zion. I think Brandon Ingram as a mid-range shooter, he's been underrated for years. You know, the Pelicans as a whole really get overlooked. Zion coming back from his issues, his health. Um,
Too many
but yeah,
burgers.
and yes, they have slipped down to that seventh seed at the moment, but they're looking. I feel like they could definitely cause an upset if they were in the right um playing
Match
sphere.
up.
Yeah, right
Oh, okay.
matchup.
Yep.
Yeah, and Zion and BI, if they're not traditional pairing, they're both forwards. I think it's still a pairing that works really well. So I have them at the
Yep.
13.
Nice. Uh, this is where I put Golden State. And I
Okay.
put Draymond Green and Steph. Steph MVP. No, well, not this year. Definitely not this year because you've got such a stacked upper echelon of MVP candidates, but
How is
still one
Giannis
of the.
not top three? That's your
We can
notes.
run
That's
through
your
that later.
notes.
We can go. We can go when you hit the Bucks. You can go through that. But that's why I've got Steph. He's not an MVP. He's not at MVP caliber this year, but he's still good. Really good. And then Draymond Green again, one of the best versatile defenders in the league. So together, they're good. When they're on the court together on offense, you wouldn't say in itself Draymond is the best offensive player. He's a great passer in pretty much any scheme that they run, and he is valuable on offense, but he's not a scorer. And I think people, when they sort of think of star power, it's like scoring is the thing that they factor in the most, especially like casual fans. That's what sort of they factor in the most.
Are you calling me casual?
No, because Kaminga is close. Kaminga
Ah,
is
no, I'm
close.
kidding.
Like people look past Draymond Green's impact, especially on offense, because everyone knows he's a good defender. But that's why I had them this high because they've won championships together and nothing has changed. Steph is still the shooter that he was. Draymond is still the passer he was, not the defender that he was, but he's still one of the best versatile defenders in the league. Um, and yeah, so Steph and Draymond, that obviously Draymond has missed time, but they've played 1,200 minutes together. An offensive rating of 116. That comes from both of them. People overlook as again Draymond, and then defensive rating. Despite Steph's lack of impact on defense, Draymond one of the best defenders, as I said. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but a defensive rating of 111.3, which is one of the best that we've got on the list so far, despite Steph being on the court. Um, but then again, they do have other good defenders. Even though Clay and Wiggins aren't the defenders that they once were, they're still okay, especially at times. Um, and they've got a net rating of 4.3, and that's why I put them as high as I did, because when you compare to the other duos, they're still one of the best pairings, and the team is nowhere near as good as they are. Even like they're not a great team this year, but they've had their issues. They're not going to be as good of a team once one of them leaves, which is rumored this offseason as well. Whether it be Clay, whether it be um, Draymond, there's rumors for both of them. So yeah, I think this is the Golden State's last dance, sort of, and I think people are really going to see the impact of Draymond Green once he's gone because MJ and Pippen didn't win 6 championships. Well, they only won 6 championships because they were so good as a pairing, and that's sort of the same with Draymond and Steph.
Yeah, I agree that in the fact that Draymond is definitely underrated and his passing and just him being on the floor elevates the ceiling and the winning capacity of any team. So if I did go Draymond, I definitely would have my Golden State pairing higher, but I don't think still not as high as you, just because I don't know. I feel like other duos. I hate to like I don't want to use star power as my like rationale, but I feel like especially as time goes on, Draymond's impact is becoming less, even though he is still very impactful on the floor. And I hate to be that guy to bring it into it, but like availability, team morale, ejections, like it does play a part in the fact that if you're not going to be able to stay on the floor or, you know, provide that leadership for a team, it's not the same impact as what he usually provides or has provided in past seasons.
Fair enough. I see where you come from. I'm
Yes,
not
mate.
I'm not
So
mad at all that you put them where they were. Um, so me is me, yeah. Um, at number 12, I've got the Heat. So I've got Jimmy and Bam. They've been better. That's the main thing I've got to say. They are +5 net rating when they're on the court together, winning by 5 when they're on the court together. And that is mainly because of defense. Anyone could have predicted that. Jimmy Butler, a great defender, can guard 1 through 4 really, and then Bam is one of the defensive. He's been one of the defensive player of the year candidates in previous year, all defensive second teams. So one of the best big defenders in the league. Um, so that really puts them as high as I would have them, even though the Heat haven't been well, especially Jimmy hasn't been as good as he has been in previous years. Um, their offensive rating isn't even that bad when Bam and Jimmy are on the floor, and that's because Jimmy is still impactful when he's not scoring because he's a good passer. Second chance points again. I've mentioned this. They both can get second chance points because Jimmy does hustle. Um, Unlike a lot of guards we've got on this list, and that's a big factor, as I said. So, um, numbers wise, and I think just the way that they play together puts them this high for me.
so at 12, this is the first thing we've had in a common in a while, and it's Jimmy and Bam at 12 is the same thing. And again, do you want to judge their past playoff performances or are you going to judge where they are now? And I've tried to be as non-biased as possible because I have so much respect for everyone's, you know, last year and in the bubble
Yeah.
as a dominant duo, and they have been all-star players in their careers, but not currently. So I can't find myself putting them any higher. We know in the playoffs, Jimmy, he's probably going to step up. The chances are. So they are a dangerous duo when it comes to that. But as a whole, the rest of the duos on this list, I couldn't find myself putting them any higher, really.
Mm, yeah. So we agree. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, again, if we did take previous bias into account, then I would be in a similar boat to you where it'd be hard to put him this low. But yeah, just this season, you have to put him around this sort of area. And then you with the 11.
at 11, I have De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit of similarity there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Double
I'm a
pick.
bit I'm a bit higher on them than you are, but I know you've been very high on Sabonis this whole year and his consistency. It's hard to look past that. I don't know how many straight double doubles he has now. A million, probably. But yeah,
I
Darren
remember the
Fox.
last time we didn't have a double double.
No, I can't. I always look through the stats to see like, is this the day that he hasn't had a double double? And it never is.
Oh, definitely not.
But Darren Fox hasn't been as consistent. They haven't had as much success as they did last year. So that's the only reason I really took a step back from them. But as a guard center duo, and obviously Domantas isn't scoring as high of a level on the offensive end. He does more of playmaking, rebounding as a whole. So that's the only reason I really knocked them back a couple spots. But they're one of the best duos. We're getting to the point now where it's really the upper echelon duos of the league. So yeah, I have them in at number 11.
Nice. Nice. At 11, I have LeBron and AD.
Really?
Yeah. Because
Interesting.
this year, obviously they carry the team. So actually, do I put him at 11? I'm going to stick with my guns because
The Lakers fans are not going to be happy with him.
no, and
Hey, yo,
that's probably
chat,
the majority.
flame this man.
No, but I got my reasoning, like I have had for others. Yeah, they've played 1,665 minutes together, offensive rating of 116.8, so they're good on offense. 113.4, so they're pretty decent on defense as well, and a net rating of 3.5. So in terms of net rating, they should be lower on this list. As a team, as a duo, they're not winning as much on the court when they're on the court together. And individually, we've seen both Anthony Davis, when he's playing individually, he puts up big numbers. When we see LeBron playing individually, he puts up big numbers and they win in a lot of occasions. But then again, you can't discount them as a duo because obviously they've won a championship. Even though I think the pieces that they had in their championship year were better surrounding them. Um, I think just an aged LeBron as well has just put them this low, even though he's still good. His impact isn't the same as it was before. And the pairing itself just isn't as good as it has been previous years, even with Anthony Davis playing the most minutes out of any Laker this year. So then again, they're still a top 10 duo when they're not a top 10 team in the league. So they're higher on average than they really
Yeah,
should be.
then their team, the rest of their team really presents. And yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about the Lakers when it gets to where I've put them, but that's a controversial one. That'll get the fans going.
People gone. Then at sorry, I also wanted to include their best duo. Again, I'm going to do this is LeBron and D'Lo with a net rating of 5.1. So when D'Lo and LeBron are on the court together, they're good, and that's because of offense because D'Lo isn't a good defender. So they're just productive on offense when they're on the floor together.
LeBron, a
And
great
that's
passer. D'Lo spaces the floor.
yeah,
Makes sense.
makes sense. Uh, so at 10, I've got the Knicks, Brunson and Randall. I don't know if you have Randall as well?
Yes, I did.
Nice. They've played 1,365 minutes together. Offensive rating of 121.3, really good on offense. And then defensively, 114.8. Not as good, but still like decent. They're not one of the best in the team in the league. Even though the Knicks, as a defense, they're one of the best in the league. They're not the best when both Randall and Brunson are on the court. And that's because I think the reason they're such a good defensive team is because they brought in those pieces halfway through the season, and then we haven't seen Randall in the second half of the season. So these are the numbers basically on the first half of the season and then a bit of the second half of the season, but we didn't get a full sample size. So um yeah, net rating of 6.1, 6.5 again. I sorry, not again. I also wanted to add that their best duo is Brunson and Hardenstein. Hardenstein had a really good second half of the season when Mitchell Robinson came out, and he's really proved himself as one of the best backup bigs in the entire league. With his rebounding, just the way that Brunson and him play, he's always ready to attack when Brunson is forced to bail out or when Brunson just has the opportunity to pass to him. He knocks down his shots. He hustles, and that's why Hardenstein is so good. And then again, I talked about the second half of the season how they improved so much on defense. When Hardenstein was given the opportunity, their defensive rating was one of the best in the league, 109.8. So that's really improved from the first half of the season. So yeah, again, they improved a lot in the second half of the season and offensively as well. When Brunson and Hardenstein are on the court together, they've got an offensive rating of 123.5. And did you know that Brunson and Hardenstein, numbers wise, they're the best duo in the league?
Really, they're the best duo.
They're the best.
I was actually going to ask who the top ones were when you were talking about the worst duos. Yeah.
When we talk about
players that have played together over 1,200 minutes, they're the best duo in the league, which I thought was insane. But it makes sense because the Knicks have been hot in the second half of the season. And I mean, if they had these pieces in the first half of the season, I wouldn't see them being too far away from the Boston Celtics because they are unbelievable. And if they add Randall to the equation again, that's why I was so high on the Knicks going into the playoffs when I thought that they could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Even if there was any team in the East that could beat the Celtics, I might put the Bucks, but I would probably put the New York Knicks because of how good they've been. But yeah, yeah, obviously Randall won't be back, so yeah, might be a different story.
Yeah, and building on from that, I've got Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle at whatever pick this is. This is 11? 11.
10.
10? 5, 6, 7, 8. No. Yeah, you're right. At 10.
We're agreeing.
And
Look at that.
yeah, but that also means that the picks that I had lower and the picks that you had lower are spaced further apart. But I mean, that's neither
Yeah.
here nor there for now.
Bro, I
Until
still
it's,
haven't picked on KC.
yeah, I know they're really high. And I will argue when the time comes, but not for now because
Okay.
we're agreeing for now.
Mhm.
And yeah, Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle as a duo, it sometimes feels a bit clunky because they're two like ball dominant players, and they both kind of had their own very distinct styles of playing. And that's why I'm surprised that Hartenstein is like and Brunson are that good, but I'm not surprised that they're good because the way they play complements each other very well. But yeah, the talent, you can't ignore it. And the team, even when both of them are on the floor, they still play very well. And they're a top contender in the East. So yeah, that's why I have them in at 10. And number 9 is so, oh, do I do it to him? Do I do it to him? No. I might get flamed for this.
Do it to him because I might
I,
agree.
I might get flamed for this, but I'm putting Ant and Rudy Gobert. I think I put Rudy Gobert over Cap. But yeah, I'm
Okay.
putting them two. And obviously, we know he's possible of. He hasn't reached his full potential as a player. Rudy has the defensive side of the ball covered. But I just don't think as a whole they match what the other duos above them bring to the table. And I know they're the best seed, but that also has a lot to do with Cat as well, who we're excluding out of this duo, and the depth of the team and the system that they play. So I think it's a bit of everything that contributes to their winning. And obviously, this duo does definitely contribute to the winning, but we do see nights where they're inconsistent, and especially is inconsistent, and Rudy doesn't contribute on the offensive end as much. So that's why I have them in at number 9.
At number 9, I got. I know
What's
you're
he
not
about
going
to
to be
do?
happy. But yeah, I got Durant and Book.
Really?
Yeah, I've got them this high because the duo is above them. They're obviously a trio, and they haven't been super impactful in terms of a trio, and that brings down their duo numbers.
What about the aura?
I Yeah, I know. That's what that is stopping me from leveling out. But Durant and Book, they've played 1,531 minutes together. Offensive rating, really good, 120.1. That's Let me see, is that the best out of all these duos? It's one of the best. It's top 4 best, but defensively, we've talked about this. It's the second half of the season. The Suns as a defense is just not good. First of all, they don't try, but second of all, even when they try, obviously they have runs where they're good defensively, but as a team, consistently they're not good defensively. They've got a net rating of 6.2, which is lower than Randall and Brunson. It's lower than.
Rundle and Branson.
Did I say that?
No, he said Rundle.
Oh, uh, Herb and Val. It's lower than Herb and Valanciunas and Herb. So that's why I've got them here. As a trio, maybe they're just not as good as they could possibly be. Obviously, that's the lineup they bring out the most. But maybe there are other combinations of players that they could play more. Obviously, they're stuck with Bradley Beal now because they're paying him 150 million. But yeah, that's why I've got them this low, because this year, if we talk about last year, I'd have them higher. This year, no, because they're not a duo.
Look, I think we're disagreeing. Disagreeing is coming. It's coming up. So I don't want to talk about too
I'll
much,
be
but
interested to hear what you've got to say about the Suns. We won't talk yet. I want to hear it when you
yeah. Okay, I'll
surprise
save it.
when you surprise me where you put it. But
I'll save it.
next up, I got the Cavs, and that's
Way different from what I had.
They jumped. I don't remember exactly where you had them. I don't know if you got it there.
They're around the mid-table for me. I think it was
Okay.
16 to
14 or
14
something.
range.
Something like that. Down year for Darius Garland, so I'm not going to include him in this. I think Jarrett Allen much closer to an all-star than Darius Garland was this year, and they've obviously played a lot more minutes because Darius was out for the first half of the season. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell have played 1,339 minutes together. They've got an offensive rating of 113.8, but the impact really comes when you talk about the defensive end, because obviously they also have Mobley on the court, and as you said, the balance that they've got as a team makes them a good defensive team as well. Yeah, they're really good despite Darius Garland also being on the court in most of the minutes. Sorry, not most of them. Most of the minutes that these guys are all playing together. And Donovan Mitchell also isn't considered a good backcourt defender either. He's just mediocre, really.
If not under average, and he's undersized.
Yeah, exactly. And their net rating as a duo is 8, which is really good. It's really good. It's a top 5 statistical duo in the entire league. And that makes sense because I think recency bias has sort of come in. Donovan Mitchell had an MVP case when he was playing really well in the sort of middle portion of the season. People were really considering him, especially because the Cavs were on like a 19-1 winning run. They were exceptional in the middle of the season. But then obviously the recent sort of trends of Donovan Mitchell, he's been injured a lot. And when he has been playing, he's really struggled coming back from injury. So that's actually skewed the data to favor Jarrett Allen and Max Strus as the best on-court pairing on the Cavs, which really shows you how deep they are as well. Jarrett Allen is also involved in all of their positive lineups as well, in terms of like with combinations of player. Jarrett Allen is included in every single positive combination of player. So he's statistically their most impactful player, which makes sense. He's a good offensive player and he's like unbelievable on defense.
He's so crucial for the brand of winning basketball that they play. But I didn't realize, I forgot that you hadn't placed them yet. That's way too high from what I would say. Because yeah, I don't understand. You can't, this is not a shot at you. You're saying that Donovan Mitchell and Jarrett Allen are better than AD and LeBron.
This season, yes.
I disagree.
Jarrett Allen is, what did you say?
I disagree.
Oh yeah, no. Okay, you're allowed to
Yeah.
disagree. But Donovan Mitchell, one of the best offensive players in the entire league when he was playing during the season. Jarrett Allen, 19 points per game when he was playing really well. Well, up to a certain point, I want to say just a little bit post All-Star, he was averaging 19 and one of the best defensive players in the league. He was more impactful, in my opinion, in the first half of the season. Obviously, I'm going to reveal right now who the player is. Anthony Davis, which, wait. When we talk about Anthony Davis, he does go off for these these big games, but he's just not as consistent as Jarrett Allen is as a defender and as an offensive player. So when you talk about consistency, when you talk about two of them as a pairing, a pick and roll pairing,
As in he's not as consistent on offense as Jarrett Allen is on defense. Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm saying offensively.
Offensively, Jarrett Allen's more consistent.
Consistent, yes. Consistently
But
between the range of 18, 21 points per
obviously,
game.
we're not arguing who is better. Obviously, AD is the better player.
Anthony Davis is better, but consistently, I would say, and as a pairing as well, we're talking about pairings here. Pick and roll pairing, Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen, one of the best pairings in pick and rolls in the entire league. And then I want to, if I had the time, I would bring up the stats, but I've looked at these stats. They are, trust me. And then Donovan Mitchell, you've what don't you have in terms of this duo? What is lacking? Obviously, backcourt defense for Donovan Mitchell, but the stats back up the fact that they're a really good defensive team when they're on the court together. So what are they missing? Nothing. Donovan Mitchell's a good passer. Nothing. They're just a really, really, really good duo.
Yeah,
Borderline
no,
all-star.
that
Not an all-star, then a borderline all-star.
is Jarrett Allen a borderline all-star.
They will. Oh well, I in my opinion, is.
I think obviously Jarrett Allen, the defensive end is good. There are questions about his offense, which is why I don't rate them as highly. And I understand that the chemistry is there, but I just think that the duos below them are better on your list. I'm not. That's just my opinion. And obviously, we keep talking about it, but we've taken different angles of how we've looked at this. We literally just put this as a prompt. This is for the audience. We've literally just put this as a prompt, and we've gone make a list. There's no consistent criteria between the both of us. It's what we think.
So
Let's
I'm
put the
gonna put
sunnies on.
Sun-
Villain.
because it is very sunny here. It's goofy as fuck. Oh well. Jesus. Nah. Oh yes.
Take them off. Put them
No,
back
I'm
on.
putting them back. It's so sunny.
Okay, I think we should move on anyway, though. So, was it me next? Was it me? My 8?
Uh, I, th- yeah, it is.
Okay, and at 8, you're gonna hate me, but I'm putting Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid at number 8. And I feel like that's
Okay.
fair enough. Even as a Philly fan, you could say that's fair enough. He's shaking his head.
Personally, I've got them a bit higher, but just because we forget how good they are as a duo, let's think about the first 30
No,
games of the
I
NBA.
know how good they are as a duo, but
Mhm.
again, I just think the duos above them are better. I'm not saying
Okay.
they're bad, and both all-star players. Tyrese Maxey's really shot up out of nowhere. And I remember them playing together. Obviously, Joel Embiid is a good defender, and Tyrese Maxey is. I don't even know Tyrese Maxey's like defensive capabilities really. I'm gonna say
He
they're
hustles,
lacking.
but he's not
He's hustle,
naturally
he's
a good
hustle, but he's
defender, but
not.
he fucking tries.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, offensively they're a powerhouse. You know, Joel Embiid was averaging 33 points per game. Tyrese
Don't
Maxey's
disrespect him like
averaging
that.
34.
36.
Oh, 36.
When he got injured, 36.
Okay, when he got injured, 36, and Tyrese is averaging around 25. Okay, yeah. You tell I'm not a big stat head, but um, yeah, they work well together. Guard and center combo. I just don't think they're, and you know how I like to take everything into account, and I'm doing this is right now, but the joys above them have had more experience, and I think over time I could definitely see Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid moving high up this list for me personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll wait to see what you have to say as the Philly fan, but I'm gonna go for my 7th spot, and I'm gonna go. This is so difficult now. This is so difficult. I'm thinking on the go again. I hate when I do this. I should just stick to my list, but it's between 2, and it is going to be, yeah, 80 and LeBron, a 7th for me. Higher than you, but it still feels wrong, but it's because I'm comparing it to past years. That's why it feels so wrong.
Okay.
This year they are around 7th. There's probably a case for you can make them a couple higher or a couple lower. You had them lower, but yeah, they're still playing at a high level. Obviously, the teams surrounding them, they're not experiencing the most success. but they're still playing well. I don't know how many wins they've got at the moment, but the West is stacked. We know this. And even though AD hasn't been as consistent, we go on about LeBron in his old age and how consistent he is on a night in, night out basis. And we've seen what I hate to harp on about the old seasons, but we've seen what they did in 2020. We've seen them overachieve. Like you said before, when I was carrying them out for the playoffs, and you were saying we saw them last year make the Western Conference Finals, even overperforming in the playoffs, which I think is a big factor for me. So I'm going to go that they're my number 7.
Fair enough. You know, thinking back, I think with that pick, I relied a bit on the stats. Whilst when we talk about them as an actual duo, and then when we talk about them come playoffs, they're a really they're one of the best duos in the league. So
That's
you know,
that's guys, that's
even
what we do. That's what we do here at the Pick and Roll podcast. We learn and we grow and we learn from each other.
I was based on stats with that pick, but I should have considered that. You're right in that aspect. I usually stick with my guns, but I'll fold a little bit there. Maybe I should have put them maybe 2 spots higher. I might have put them above the Knicks, maybe. But with my 7th, I'm gonna go the. Wow. Okay, so this is what the video was actually based on. Luka Doncic and Kyrie
7.
at 7. Because Luka's impact. So I will just start with saying the Mavs are probably the deepest team in the league, in my opinion, because their impact doesn't change. Like I said, this is sort of because I was doing my research. This is sort of how I know about it. Luka's impact isn't different when he's off the court. It is like a little bit, like less than 1 in terms of net rating and in terms of a bunch of other stats. In fact, it was a video that I saw that told me that Luka isn't as impactful as people think. Yeah, he still puts up these incredible stats.
Well, we saw that when those stretch of games where he was going off and they just weren't winning basketball.
Yeah, exactly. But the Mavs aren't a team who has played a whole lot of consistent minutes together, so it's absolutely incredible that they're as good as they are at this point. But then again, they did go on this little run in the last 10 games that put them, as we were like prophesizing as well. We thought that they should be a better seeded team, and now they are a top 6 team. They could push up the top 4 team in the West, so that'd be really good for them. On a side note, but yeah, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, their offensive rating is 119 and their defensive rating is 109, which is really quite surprising. Because as a backcourt, Kyrie and Luka a little bit lazy at times on defense. Kyrie just doesn't have the assets to be a really good defender. Even though he does have good reaction times, it doesn't translate as well to the defensive end. They've got a net rating of 9.1, which is really good. One of the best duos in the league. But then again, Luka's impact this year hasn't reflected his production. But as a duo, when they play together, they are impactful, and that's why there's sort of where they are for me. But then again, you could put them higher, but I think the fact that the players that they've got around them, especially defensively with Gafford, Gafford's one of the best finishers in the league. He almost made the most consecutive field goals, almost as many consecutive field goals as Wilt Chamberlain's record. He was only like 1 or 2 field goals shy or something. And their acquisitions halfway through the season, also, they're just a really, really deep team. And that's what puts them as contenders for me as well. So even though they're a really good duo, I just think that the players above them, a lot of them, they don't have as a deep team around them, and they carry their team more, sort of, in my opinion. And then we talk about backcourts. They're not my favorite in terms of duos, because I think you're more productive as a duo with a front court and a back court because you can do pick and roll. That's why I think Dame and Giannis, when they work things out, will be really good. That's why Maxey and Embiid are really good. So as a backcourt duo, that's sort of just a personal preference for me, and that's why they're at 7. So that's what I got.
Yeah, look, I agree, and obviously, spoilers, that will come in the next couple picks for me as well. Playing at a high level, winning games at the moment, which you're saying we predicted, guys. We know ball. We knew they were going to come good in the end. But yeah, I don't really have any qualms with
Yeah.
with those picks from
We'll
you.
think more about it when you talk about it.
Yeah. So is it me now? Or is it you again?
No, I just hopped on for a long time, so it feels like 2. But I do have another one. So at number
Brother,
6,
it's 11:10 here.
I'm
Let me go
sorry.
to
I'm
bed.
sorry.
No, I'm
I've got a lot
kidding.
of holidaying to do as well, so I gotta. Nah, we're having fun. So at least I'm having fun. I won't speak for you, but
No,
it's good.
of course I am. I love talking basketball.
Yeah. At 6, I've got Minnesota. So they're a little bit higher than you had it, but you thought that your pick was controversial when it came around. So I think there's arguments for both whether they should be as low as they were for you or as high as they are for me. But I just put Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. I think that was obviously Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year. But Cat is a lot more productive on offense and he's more versatile and he's a improved defender as well this year. So that's why I put him there. But it can be argued for either way. They have an offensive rating of 118.9, which is good. Obviously, all of these from here on will be really good on both sides, but their defensive rating is 109.2, which is one of the best that we've got here. In fact, it might be it's top 3. But their net rating is 9.7, so they're winning by 9 points when both of them are on the court, which is really good. But statistically, this is where I also side with you in the fact where you'd put Rudy there. They're the best. They're actually their best combination of players is Rudy and Ant with but it was only marginally like they had a net rating of 10 whilst Cat and Ant have a net rating of 9.7, so very close. And that comes with extra defense. So, but then again, Cat and Rudy are on the court together most of the time. So, it can be argued either way. But yeah, I think with them being a top 3 seed, well, they will finish as a top 3 seed in the West and being the best defensive team in the league. That's why I've got them this high because Cat or Rudy himself is a really good, impactful player. And I think Anthony Edwards and Cat's game sort of complements each other a bit better than Rudy's. And I think they're one of the best complementary games in the league, Anthony Edwards and Cat.
Yeah, obviously, the best players in a team contribute to the team's success. That's an obvious fact. But I think with your top picks, I don't know if you're prioritizing team basketball and winning basketball higher than I am in terms of I'm just focusing just strictly on the duos, I think, a bit more. Not dissing you. No, I'm dissing you. You're wrong. No, but I'm saying this, make sure you don't take into account that just the success of the teams and obviously the duos contribute to it. But it's important to focus on the specific duos as well.
I mean, Cat and Anthony Edwards both All-Stars and both Anthony Edwards, I mean, top 10 for boys. He was at one point in MVP conversation, but obviously the others took a bit of a jump there. Cat, the most productive year of his career, and he's been All-Stars in previous years. So, I mean, yeah, obviously a very successful team, but I still think they're well, we had them in similar ranges anyway. You had them at not 8, so yeah, I just think they're as a duo they're really good.
Yeah, mate, I'll challenge you as long as you back up what you're saying.
I had an
That's what
answer,
matters.
so
He's ready. Okay, it's me and it's
It's
number 6.
6. Yeah.
So at 6, I've done a little bit of a rearrange. I have. And I have D-Book and KD at number 6. Because initially I had them, I'm going to spoil it. Initially I had them at 4.
Mhm.
And I took a step back and I was thinking to myself, these other duos have proved so much more this season than these two have. And yes, the defensive end, KD, is older. The defensive end, they don't play as well. Obviously, offensively, they're going to go well. And the duo themselves haven't contributed to winning as much as the other duos in this list. The Suns have just escaped the 7th seed in the West. And yeah, you can argue that duos don't contribute that highly to, you know, a one spot difference in the standings or whatever. But in terms of when you're comparing the best of the best, it does come into account. And that's why I have the other duos above them. But still, obviously, very good. When the big three got together, everyone hit a little oh no moment because, we thought they were going to be really good. And don't worry, I'm releasing that big three video soon where I'll dive into do big threes actually work.
Are you actually?
I should when I have time.
Yeah, do it. Do it. It's your idea. Don't give it to
Nah,
Jimmy Farrell,
pick and roll special.
guys.
Secret. Let us know if you want to see something like that.
Like a little video, like just deep dive into something. Yeah, like that.
Bit more
Would be good.
analytical than we usually do.
Two minds combined into one. With that, that's what we have over Jimmy Harrell, so and
Exactly,
video production.
different perspectives. But anyway, next is the number 5. And this is where I have Luka and Kyrie. And I'm a bit on the bandwagon because I love both those players. And I know the guard combo isn't your favorite. But I just think what they've accomplished, especially over the past recency bias aside, the past month or two, they've really kicked into gear and they've shown why when they got together, people thought it was going to be such a lethal duo. And yes, the Maverick success sometimes lies on like Kyrie. Is he going to score 20 over 25 a night? Because Luka is going to be Luka and he's going to put up the same or similar numbers, 35-point triple double nearly every night. But I don't know what's happened in Dallas. The formula's changed. Obviously, the trades and everything, and getting more used to playing with each other as the season has gone on. Even though they
I
did
think
play
it's
with each other.
just that it's consistency
Yeah.
because, as I said, they didn't have a common as like being this good as a team. They didn't have those combinations of players playing with each other for more than 1,000 minutes. So it's just consistency of rotations.
Yeah, so they've really put it together. Kyrie has not hit a renaissance because he never really stopped being that level of player. But I think last year he was kind of a bit underwhelming from my expectations, my standpoint at least. So this year he's really lived back up to what we knew Kyrie as. And Luka is playing an MVP level. He's probably my MVP at the moment. I don't know, controversial. Even
It's all
someone
so close in the West that I'm not mad.
yeah, someone who didn't have him in their top 3 like a month ago is saying that he's the favorite to win now. But I don't know. It's controversial. That's a different video. But yeah, Luka and Kyrie are coming in at number 5 for me.
I'm gonna switch up my list a little bit. I did have no, I'm not gonna tell you who I did have, but I'm gonna put the Sixers. And that is because I'm gonna show you the stats. I'm gonna tell you the
Just justify
stats, I'll show
this.
you.
Show me you're not biased.
I would put them higher, but they haven't played the minutes together this season to justify them being higher. But the numbers when they're on the court together, this is why I was like a little bit shocked that you had them where they were. Because when they're on the court together, they are top. I won't say top 2. I think they're top 3 in the league. I will talk about their stats. They've played less than 1,000 minutes, so that's why they're not any higher. They've got an offensive rating of 122.5, a defensive rating of 110.4, first of all, the best offense in the league by far when they're on the court together as a duo. And then they've got a net rating of 12.1. They're winning by 12 points when they're on the floor. There are only 3 teams in the entire league that have, sorry, no, including them, there are 3 teams that have a net rating of 12 or more. So statistically, when they're on the court together, they're a top 3 team in the league. And then when we talk about duos, they're a great pick and roll duo. The pieces around them haven't been good this year. We aren't the deepest team. And we've sort of seen that from when Embiid was out, and we weren't winning consistently at all. We dropped all the way to the play-in when we were a top 3 seed at one point, when Embiid got injured. And yeah, Maxey, as you said, I'm not sure if it was 25 or 26 points per game. And then Embiid 36 points per game. So you combine that, that's pretty much 60 points per game just from their duo. That's half of their points, more than half of their points scored just from those 2. They're the best scoring duo in the league when they're on the court together. But then again, these teams on top of them, they all have more minutes played. Especially one of the teams that I'm giving more of a bias to. I don't want to give anything away, but I'm giving more of a bias to them because they've played more minutes than a lot of the duos that I've got on this list. Especially in the top 10, they've got the most minutes played out of the top 10. So that's what I'm giving the bias to. And then I'm going to bring the Sixers down just a little bit because they haven't played the minutes together. But if Embiid and Maxey were on the court together the entire season, first of all, I think they're easily a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't think there's too much argument to that. You might say
No.
4 because you're a Bucks fan. But
Well, I think they bumped the Cavs.
yeah. And then Embiid, he was the runaway MVP winner when he got injured. I think he would be the
Correct.
MVP at this point. Maxey,
Probably.
they are just fucking balling this year. The Sixers were balling until they got injured. And I hate it. I hate it. But we're back. We are back. We haven't lost a game since Embiid's been back. It's been 3 games. We beat the Cavs. So I ain't worried about the East. We good in the East.
Famous last words. But yeah,
Oh,
I
man.
agree. I agree that they're a very good duo, but I think just need to see a little bit more for me.
Yeah.
To put them high, which I think is perfectly fine. And I think both views make sense. I know you're passionate. You can tell the passion was there. He's thought about that one deeply. But yeah, I'm interested to see what happens, especially in the playoffs, because as much as you love Joel, I love Joel as a player, but his numbers do go down in the playoffs. So it'd be interesting to see how the duo maintains.
Agreed. That's something I've been looking forward to all year.
When they play the Bucks.
As if they play the Bucks, that'd be cool. Again, like I said, I won't speak to you all week until we win. I'll get in your ear, but if we lose, the podcast is ending. Our friendship is ending. No,
Yeah,
of course not.
we've only been
That's
able to
not-
be friends because they haven't played in a proper series since we've been fans.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
I have Kawhi and Paul George. 2 great defensive players, all-round players. They can pass, they can shoot, they can rebound at a good or above average level, especially for the position. And they're playing winning basketball. The Clippers obviously have a lot of good pieces around them, Westbrook, Harden, and Zubats even at rebound that contribute to them winning games. But we all know that Kawhi and PG are the centerpieces of that Clippers team. And it's taken a couple of years for them to really get their mojo going, to stop load managing, to stop getting injured. But I think when all cylinders are firing for the Clippers, that they're really dangerous. We've talked about this all year, really. And Kawhi and PG at the centerpiece of that. Yes, they do have games where, they'll both have under 20 points and they'll lose. And that's why I didn't have them as high as the top 3 for me, because just the lack of scoring potential. You rarely see anymore, at least, games where they have over 40. It doesn't really happen anymore. And I know they're veterans of the game. They know when to score and what decisions to make. But I just think the lack of scoring for me is what brings them down a little bit. But obviously, two great players. This is a very tight top four.
I've got nothing to say because I wanna talk a little bit about that when I select them. But I do have something to say about that.
Okay, and then I'll go on to number 3, and I'm going to go Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, which I think is fair because obviously a duo that has contributed so much to the Celtics winning this year. Jaylen Brown has mostly proved the haters wrong in the fact that he's maintaining a good level of play and stepping up when the Celtics need it. Jason Tatum, not much more to say. I think he's fifth in MVP voting. That's correct to say. Yeah. There's not much more to say.
Yeah.
He's the best player on the best team in the league by a fair margin throughout the whole year at least. And the only thing that makes me question it is the fact that the team around them is so good
Yeah.
that it kind of diminishes from just those two players. But that's the only real
Yep.
reason that I would take away from them. You know, a great duo. I have them at 3. You had to have them up there. So yeah, they're at 3 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, our lists are a little different. Be interesting.
Yeah, I like it. Normally we're pretty
So-
similar. So
So I'm gonna put at that three spot. 3 spot. Sorry. Yeah. So my list is confusing me because I swapped out the Sixers for this team, but I've got the Boston Celtics at 3 because they've played 1,520 minutes. Offensive rating 120, one of the best in the league. Defensive rating 110, which is really good. Not one of the best, like one of top. What am I reading? Sorry. Yeah, no. I'm reading the right thing. One of the best when their team as a whole is the second best defensive team in the league. When they're on the court together, they're not actually a top 5 defense, which I found quite interesting because they do take up quite a few of the team's minutes. But then that brings me to my next point. We talk about the depth that they've got, and that's actually what you were talking about as well, because they got Drew Holiday, one of the best players vote him as the best perimeter defender and almost overall defender in the league. The hardest matchup. And then you've got Porzingis, a good shot blocker. You've got Derek White, one of the most defensively versatile players in the league. And these are all acquisitions within the last, or Derek White a little bit earlier, but this year. And even though we do know how good JB and JT are good as a duo because we've seen them without as much depth in the past, I just still think that they don't crack some of the teams that are above them because of that depth. And again, I'm going to say it again, both play like a guard. You get Jason Tatum shooting so many threes that he's basically a guard on offense. On defense, he's got the ability to guard forwards. But again, I'm going to say I don't like the backcourt guard pairing because they aren't good as a duo. Obviously, you can play pick and roll with Jason Tatum, but that's not his game plan and that's not how they play the game. We're talking about how they play the game, not how they could play the game. So the way that they play the game as a duo, they aren't a duo, in my opinion. It's the whole team. This year, they're not a duo.
yeah,
They
I feel
don't
like
play off.
that
They don't play
have
off each
been.
other as much as they have in previous years.
Yeah, I would say they have been a duo, but for the sake of the list, that we're counting them as a duo here.
Yeah. So that's why I've got them here. That's why I've got them at the
Yeah,
3.
I feel like we have the same reasons for that. We're back to agreeing.
You're about to fucking hate me though.
I can tell. I've tallied up what teams you haven't said yet.
So 4 was actually Jason Tatum for me. Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics. So we were 1 pick apart. But yeah, I've got Shea and J-Dub at number 3.
I just don't agree. I feel like Shea as an individual player is obviously he's one of the best in the league, but I feel like J-Dub doesn't contribute as heavily as you're saying they're a better duo than Tyrese and Embiid. As a 76ers fan, you're saying that.
This year, yeah, because they've played so many more minutes together. The only reason I don't have the only reason why I don't have them as high is because of that. I'm talking the way that they play off each other as well. I'm not just talking about the two best players and how individually they
I know,
impact
but
the game.
I still disagree. From the OKC games I've watched, yes, they do play off each other, but not to a high enough degree to
Obviously,
overcome that.
they play off each other on offense because that's one side of the ball, but there's a whole other side of the ball as well. J
Yeah,
Dub
of
is one of them.
course.
I've said this before, like for a few players on here, but we're talking about the best players in the world. He's one of the best two-way players in the league, J Dub. He's in his second year. He's already one of the best. He's got a man's body. He's got a 28-year-old's body, and he's
You're obsessed with his body.
22 years old. And then you talk about
That's why
Shea,
you're putting him 3.
his body, yes. No,
Yep.
he's one of the most versatile defenders in the league, can defend guards, can defend a pick and roll. And then you've got Shea, who leads the league in steals. He's one of the most active perimeter defenders in the league. You got to think about both sides of the ball. I know you do. I'm prioritizing that as a half and half. The game is half defense, half offense. And then we talk about Shea, maybe the best offensive player. Okay, I'm not going to say that because Luka is the best offensive player in the league.
Correct.
But Shea is top 3 at least.
Or
Shea,
Jokic.
Yeah, okay. But then again, Shea averaging almost 10 assists per game and 30 points per game. He's in MVP conversation. And then you just need to consider both sides of the ball because when we talk about great duos, when we talk about MVP candidates and their partners, they don't have that side of the ball. We talk about Jokic and Murray. They don't have that side of the ball. Even though Jokic is he's a fair enough defender, but then Jamal Murray isn't as good. Okay, so I've got Jason Tatum at 5. I've got the Boston Celtics at 5. I've got Shea and the Thunder at 4. Okay, so regardless, we talk about both sides of the ball. Dame and Giannis. Dame doesn't have that other side of the ball. The only example that I can give is Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, who both have that side of the ball, but they're not as good on offense as Shea is. And then you add Jalen Williams. You talk about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George scoring 20 points per game on some occasions. Well, you've got J-Dub averaging 20 points per game, and then you've got the best offensive player in the league. You've got one of the best defensive teams in the league, and that's a big part of that is the fact that this duo of players are one of the best defensive duos in the league. So I'm considering the other side of the ball as much as the offensive side of the ball, where they're already a top. I'm actually going to look it up because they're a top team on offense, and as a duo, they're amazing defensively. And I was tossing up whether I should put Chet here as well, because statistically, in terms of like impact, Shea and Chet are also really good. But I just think J-Dub's more of a versatile scorer, and obviously Chet plays really well as a big center, and he's one of the best defensive centers, big men in the league. But then again, I think J-Dub's more of a versatile defender and all-around defender, but Chet's just really good at what he does on defense. So that's But I've got the Thunder at 3, and their record reflects it as well. And I don't think they're as deep as these other teams either. I just think as a duo, they're just.
I think they are a deep team.
Well, they're not as deep as the other teams that we've got here. They just aren't.
Arguable.
Who would you say they're deeper than? Out of these top,
I've deleted half my list.
Okay.
I'm not arguing this. You're wrong, but J-Dub is just not good enough.
What am I wrong about?
J-Dub is just not good enough. Come back to me in a year time.
Well, we got to talk about defense though. I think you're way
We
too
are.
much.
I've talked about defense multiple times.
But you got to go 50-50. There's two sides of the ball.
Why? Why do I have to go 50-50?
Because half the time you're playing defense.
That's not there's no rule that says I have to go 50-50. And I acknowledge that the fact that they're good on defense and Shea is great on offense. Is J-Dub top 25? Is he a top 25 player in the league?
Defensively, yes.
But we're not just talking about defense.
No, we're not. But I've also
So
talked about the other
that's
stuff.
why I don't think he's a top. What do you have this? Is this fourth? Fifth? Fourth?
Fourth.
That's why I just don't think they're a top 4 duo because look at all the. I've deleted my list. Why have I done this? I deleted it as I went. But anyway, the
But
players.
you guys let us know. You guys let us know because I'm passionate about that. And
I feel like neither of us are changing our minds, so we need you guys to chime in here.
good. And we're allowed to have different lists. That's what
No,
makes
we're
this
not.
so conversational and good. Imagine if we had the same list. This video would be done half an hour ago,
Legit, probably an hour.
probably.
Okay, so do you want to catch up because why
Yeah,
am
I
I so
do.
far ahead of you?
So I got to pick my 3 now. So I'm gonna go. Who did I have? I gotta. This is all messed up now.
No, you
So
have no,
I had
you haven't picked LA, you haven't picked.
okay. Okay, I got Dame and Giannis at number 3. Just because Dame has had an inconsistent year, I think Dame and normal Dame, I think arguably they might be the best duo in the league. But because of his inconsistency, lack of defense, which Giannis makes up for when we talk about the pairing, the numbers, I just don't think they're as good as the 2 that I've got above. I'll quickly go into the stats. First of all, this was the team that I was saying that has played the most amount of minutes out of the top 10. They've played almost 2,000 minutes together, which is really good. And they've had an offensive rating of 121, defensive rating of 111, and they've got a net rating of 10. So that's top 4 in the league. But I think it goes beyond that because Giannis is so good and Dame. That I just think they're a good duo as well.
Yeah, of course,
And
I
you
agree.
disagree with got them this high as well.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna finish off my list, and at number 2, I have Giannis and Dame, and at number 1,
Yeah,
I have
number 3?
yeah.
Who's your 3?
Didn't I not already go? Why do I keep deleting it? I had number 3. I had Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown at number 3.
Oh yeah.
But that
Yep.
was you had Giannis and Dame at 4, 3,
Right.
3. Yeah. Well, I have them at 2, and I have Jokic and Murray at 1. Spoiler alert.
Wow,
But
you just fucking jumped the gun.
Yeah, I did.
Wait, so you had Dame
Well,
and Giannis at 2?
Yeah, because
Okay.
like just pretty much what you said, they haven't fully strung it together, but you can see when James shoots over 50%, the Bucks have only lost 1 game this year. When he shoots over 50%, you can see the potential. Giannis is so consistent. We've seen efficient shooting wise. It's almost annoying as a fan because you know how good we can be, and we're not that good. But who knows if come the playoff time. But I talk about the Bucks enough on this podcast, so I'm not really gonna harp on about it as much as
I
I'd
want you to
like
go
to.
more into you've talked about Giannis, but why is Damian Lillard and him so good?
The
As a
pick and
duo.
roll, the pick and roll threat when one of them doesn't play as well, the other one can step up, and it's just a great combination of attributes. When you have we were talking about defense, a great lengthy defender in Giannis who scores at the paint, pretty much at will most of the time, and a not so great defender, but a great perimeter shooter in Dame, spacing the floor, helps Giannis out, spacing the floor. Just need Malik Beasley to hit some shots. He's shooting like 12% for the past month. Come on, man. But apart from that, yeah,
That's why I
that's
have
pretty
it
much
that
all I
high
have to
as
say.
well. Because as a duo, I think even though individually, well, I'm gonna say Dame individually is not as good as a lot of these players that we have in the top 10 or top 5, I'll say. I won't say top 10. But top 5, I think just together, if we talk about duos, they're really good. Forward, point guard, it's my favorite sort of duo.
Yeah, we were talking about the potential these two had at the start of the year. and it hasn't fully reached that point. Like it's obviously been disappointing. Dame hasn't shot as efficiently as he probably should have. Who knows what's behind the actual shooting efficiency problem? But yeah, just the potential, the fact that I was mouth watering over this duo at the start of the year.
Everyone was.
It speaks volumes. So yeah, that's why I have them at number two. And yeah, at number one, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. I can hear the comments. Campbell, Jamal Murray is not an all-star. And yes, we talked about this before. I can't remember who it was about because we have been talking for like two and a half hours at this point.
We've been
But
speaking. I figured it out. We've been speaking for over 3 hours, by the way.
really,
Yeah.
but anyway, you guys better enjoy. Guys better leave a like. Yeah, it's nearly 12 o'clock here. 12 the night time. But anyway,
It's a movie.
so
It's more than a movie. We've just made fucking. Sorry, I won't ramble. We've gone for too long.
that's why my mind's a bit scrambled if I'm not making sense as much as I was earlier. But Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Jamal is not an all-star, no. But the fact that the chemistry is so good between them, and we've seen it, and we have even seen when the Nuggets don't have Jamal Murray, they're just worse off. They don't win as many games. They backpack off each other. Normally it's a thing of, you know, two players, Giannis and Dame. They're two really good players. The chemistry isn't just there yet. Tatum and Brown, really good players. They're just not really a duo. But Jamal and Jokic, the chemistry is there, especially in playoffs. The level they play at is there. Jamal Murray he could shoot more shots and score more, but he does what is needed of him. He plays his role, and Nikola Jokic helps facilitate that. It's just perfect. As a basketball fan, if you're not saying that's the number one duo, I'd really like to hear your reasoning. But yeah, that's my list. Finish us off.
So I got LA at number 2, the Clips, because they've been inconsistent on defense, but that has no part to do with Kawhi, no part to do with Paul George. That is the rest of the team for the most part. Obviously, they have their patches where they're not as good, but when we talk about impact on the first of all, if we go back to 2019, Paul George, MVP, top 3, Kawhi Leonard led a championship team. They were considered 2 of the best two-way players that we had in the game. They've combined forces. Obviously, they've had time to figure it out. They weren't figuring it out in the first few years, but they've figured it out. I won't say they're back in prime form. Obviously, Paul George's not back in prime form, but we talk about Kawhi. He's back to leading a team, and they're the best two-way players in the league. They don't play off each other as much, but when you talk about the numbers when they're on the court together and almost exclusively together, they have the second highest offensive rating and it's right. They're top 4 in defensive rating as well. So they have a net rating of 12.6, which is just shy of the best duo, which is who was it? It was
That's why I don't take stats too seriously.
It was Hartenstein and Brunson. No, but like they were Hartenstein and Brunson were the best duo in the league at one point, statistically. And you watch offense, like they're winning. We're talking about winning. And we talked about Brunson, Hartenstein, how well they play off each other. But then I just think, obviously, individually they're really good players. But Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, when we talk about the league's best duos, they are just that. They're one of the best duos in the league. You've got Russ coming off the bench. You've got Harden coming off the bench in a lot of games. Obviously, Harden more runs. Even if he doesn't come off the bench, he runs that second unit, and he's more. When Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are having a rest, he's running the offense, and he's got pick and roll with Zubac, which is also something I wanted to bring up. They're also one of the best duos in the league in terms of when no isolation ball is going on. When we're talking about pick and roll, they're the best pick and roll partner in the league, other than was it Trae Young and someone else, and then Tyrese Halliburton and someone else. But yeah, I just think Paul George and Kawhi, when you talk about two-way impacts and the fact that they're so good when they're on the court together exclusively, I think they're second. And then Denver Nuggets number one. You covered all of the stuff that I was going to say. But again, I've got stats as I have this entire video. Just to back it up, they've played decent amount of minutes. But of course, Jamal Murray was out a little bit earlier in the season. Their offensive rating is 124, which is the best in the league in terms of duos, and then defensively 109.8, which is also one of the best we're talking top four. So, and they're by far the best offensive team when they're on the court together, and that is pretty much due to pick and roll with Jokic and Jamal Murray, and then the off-ball movement, as we talked about earlier with Jamal Murray. They're just such a powerhouse, and there's zero way that you can stop them. And that's obviously why they're such a good team and why they've won a championship. But they have a net rating of 14.5. So when we talk about duos, when we talk about the next best good duo in the league, they have a net rating of 2+2 onto the previous team. And when we talk about the 10, what separates number 10 and this duo is only 3+3. So we're talking a huge gap. So we're talking between 10 and 2, there was only a gap of 3. When we talk about, again, 2 compared to 1, there's a gap of 2. I hope that makes sense, but it's fucking huge.
Yeah,
They're the
I
best.
gotcha.
They're by far the best duo in the league. And they have, as a team, the highest. Sorry. Sorry, no, I won't cover that because I've pretty much summarized that. But yeah, no, that when they're on the court together, they're the best team in the league. If anyone argues that, like you said, you're good for you. You are good for you.
Go look at yourself in the mirror there.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was our list. It's been a long episode, but let us know down below if you agree with the list or not. Do you guys enjoy the longer episodes? Because we've been talking for a long time. So let us know if you enjoyed that, or should we stick to the shorter stuff? Hopefully the delays and the videography is good enough for you guys this week. But sorry, we'd have to make do for the next couple of weeks, but we'll be back soon. Do not worry for the heat of the playoffs. Max, you want to take us out here?
Yeah. Just if you're listening on YouTube, just like and subscribe. That's all we ask. Leave a comment. Obviously let us know what you thought of the episode of a very different style, like Campbell said. But yeah, like the video, subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, which wow, it's a long listen without any visuals, so good on you. But leave a 5-star rating. Follow us. It really helps so much. And we're growing rapidly, so this will only help us even more. So we really hope that we hope that you like the episode, and we will see you next week. It will still be the setup, which unfortunately that's just the way it is. But yeah, I miss the set, so I can't wait to be back. And we'll have posters.
Stay tuned for that.
All right. Adios.
Peace.